for folks. Thank you so much. Just a couple reminders for folks attending the meeting. Please make sure to say your name before you start speaking. This meeting is being recorded. It's a formal advisory meeting of the state. And if you're a member of the public and wish to comment, there is a public comment section of the agenda at the end of the meeting. Members of the public will have up to 3 minutes to speak per person. And if you'd like to comment, please make sure to send a chat message to Melissa Gallardo so that she's aware that you'd like to speak. And then with that, I think I'm passing it to Brian to review the agenda. Thanks again, everyone, for being able to join, for folks who are able to join in person and virtually today. Oh, a little bit of echo on my end. I'll go ahead and mute here.
I think we got it. I'm going to go ahead and take roll call, and then I will pass it to Brian. Zan Ojero. Oh, sorry, this is Melissa Gallardo with YDO. Zan Ojero. Daniela Avila. Parasa Chanrami.
Here.
Andrew Copeland.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
Bobby Devine.
Good morning, here.
Yoselin de la Garza Hernandez Lopez.
Here.
Jenny Glass.
Here.
Jeff Justison.
Here.
Nate Latanzio.
Here.
Kim Le.
Here.
Andy Leonard.
Here.
Christina McMahon. Jeff Parker.
Here.
Savannah Relatas. Alexander Robinson.
Here.
Molly Rogers.
Here.
Hannah Schroeder. Janelle Theobald. Those are our regular council members. I'm also going to call the ex officio officers, Sam Coe and Sandra Santos.
Sam's waving.
Oh, Sam is waving.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, Sam is here virtually. And I think Sandra had given a tentative, so I don't see her yet. Okay, let me do a quick count and I'll let you know about quorum. Brian, you want to go?
Sweet. Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everybody. Brian Detman, Youth Development Director, Youth Development Oregon. I really appreciate folks showing up, either virtually or in person. There are a few of us here in the room in Salem on a kind of rainy, maybe a little blustery day. Hopefully the power won't go off. Remember that a year ago?
A year ago.
The power went out. So we'll hope for power all day. We've got a full agenda planned. I just appreciate all the work of staff and council members in getting ready for today. We've got a vote that we want to do pretty early on. So just if for some reason you got to kind of come in and out, let Melissa know or me know. We appreciate it, but that's going to come up, I think, within the first hour here. So we'll get that done and then keep things rolling. But we'll start with a director's update. I'll do that here in a sec. We'll have a grants update. As a part of the grants update, there's, as I said, there's going to be a vote around one of our grant programs that we just want to share with you, kind of the process and the council's vote on, and then a couple of other updates around grants. We'll do a data presentation at around 11. Thanks, Bill and Cord and other members of the team. We'll share some dance. We're gonna dance at 11. Wow, that's what's on the agenda. We'll have some data around our related to our community investment grants, and then a little preview of some data too in our re-engagement grant area, as well as just a kind of overarching schedule of data presentations. We'll break around 11:45. Check your email, your cell, your text, whatever. bio break, and then I think lunches are going to arrive around that time too. We'll get rolling right again around noon. We have a grantee presenting, building healthy families, based out of Eastern Oregon, Pendleton area, if I'm not mistaken. So appreciate them sharing a little bit about the work they're doing. Then that'll go till 12:40, 12:45. We'll then have our committee updates. We've got a half hour for that. We'll see if the committee updates come at 1:20. We've got our Juvenile Justice Committee and our State Advisory Group related updates. That will come around 12:45. That should take 35 minutes. Then we'll go to committee updates, public comment, all wrap us up around 1:45, 1:50, and we'll get you out of here by 2 o'clock. So that's our agenda for the day. Are there any questions or comments, or did I miss anything, Melissa, Parsa? All right, that's that. So I think it's still on me for a director's update. Want to just quickly cover legislative short session, a little bit of updates on some work that we're doing with our grantees and convenings. So a quick schedule there, some member information, and those are kind of the three areas that I'll cover. So the legislative short session ended earlier. Well, I think it actually technically ended at the end of last week. And generally, I think given the economic forecast information from mid-February, the budget reductions, I think that we had been thinking might take place, at least for our agency. We did not have any budget reductions. I think other agencies also fared fairly well. Certainly, some decisions were made to, and you may have seen this in the headlines or in the news around like certain vacancies that will remain unfilled. We don't have any vacancies in our agency, but I think other agencies do. So there's some what's also often referred to as like vacancy savings that I think different agencies are going to see, which means that I think from a staffing capacity standpoint that can have an effect, but that's just something to be aware of. And we'll talk about this in a little bit later, had put on the table as a potential reduction our gun and gang violence related grant funding. So that is maintained. So we're going to bring to you here in a little bit kind of a process for awarding those dollars. So those were not reduced, not cut. So we've got some money that we weren't sure we were going to have, but we are going to have. We also actually did get some more money. The Gresham East Metro Outreach Prevention and Intervention Program, often referred to by that acronym EMOPI, did get $1.9 million, and those dollars do flow through youth development, right? They come to us, and then we basically pass them right on to the city of Gresham. Like, there's not much we're doing. We don't have operational expenses related to that. Certainly, one of our grant managers, Abraham Magana, with court supervision and just other general grant management, like we are administering those funds and talking to them about reporting and some data stuff, but it's basically passed through. So the legislature decided that they would be awarded an additional $1.9 million. You may remember in the beginning of this biennium, they were awarded, or they were in our budget for about $2 million. So they already have $2 million. They're getting another 1.9, call it $2 million more. In the last biennium, they had, I think, around 4 or 4.5 million. So with this start of this biennium, they had less money than they did last biennium, and now they've been basically able to get close to what they had in the last biennium. So additional dollars for us. I mean, but the most important thing is like more dollars that are going to be going out into communities to serve and young people and do a lot of important prevention work in the kind of East Multnomah County area, other intervention on the ground, some gun violence and gang violence related work. So that's what's happening with that program. Otherwise, like I said, no reductions, but actually some additional money that will pass through the state budget. Any questions there? Cord, any additions that you want to make on that? Can't see you were here, Cord, but I'm assuming no.
Sorry, trying to get to my mute button. No additions.
Yeah, thanks, Cord. Anything from, yes, Jeff?
3 quick questions, probably Jeff Parker for the record. When are agency requested budgets due for next session? Is the governor going to allow policy action package requests? And has the governor asked for mandatory reductions?
I think I can answer the second question pretty, but maybe Cord, maybe you know the timelines. And so I can answer 2 and 3 and then we'll come back. So we have been, as agencies have been instructed that they can offer policy option packages, but that they not have any budgetary impact. So well, if there was something that you could offer that, and I can't give a good example off the top of my head, again, Brian Dutman for the record, but basically we had submitted a policy option package kind of placeholder in case there was something that we wanted to do or needed to do, but your analysis, your idea, like a non-budgetary impact policy option package is not something we have in mind. We don't have anything in mind. We don't have anything on the table. That's not to say that there aren't things that we might want to invest in, but the things I think we maybe want to do would probably have budget impacts. So we're not putting anything on the table, and we've been instructed, like, if you do something, no budget impact.
So similar to 25.
Similar to the last biennium. And we have not, I guess, formally been asked yet around like reductions, but each biennium we are, as agency directors, asked to do an exercise that says do a 2.5% cut scenario. Maybe they ask us to do a second scenario around like 5%. So each biennium we do that pretty much anyway. So I haven't like formally seen that, but each of the biennia that I've been a director, we've had to do that just as an exercise. So I would anticipate that we'd have to do that exercise in 2020, in the like summer of 2027. Cord, do you have a sense of the timelines?
Yeah,
at
I
all?
believe the work starts, I believe, in April of this year. So next month, essentially, like they'll begin that budget build process.
Okay. Thanks, Cord. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, good questions. Okay, so moving on. One of the things we want to make all council members aware of, and you will get an email to this effect, so don't worry about trying to capture all this on paper, but I think you may recall that we, over at least the last couple of biennia, have been bringing our grantees together in fairly regular convenings. And so we've got some convenings coming up in May. I think it's a requirement of our re-engagement grantees. And Paul, you can help me here, or another grant manager, but I think we also are inviting other like community investment grantees, our workforce readiness grantees, just folks in the community to come together, learn about what, network and connect, and also, do some work in collaboration with each other. So those are coming up in May, starting May 8th. We've got one in Central Oregon hosted by the Intergovernmental Council, the Oregon Intergovernmental Council, and it will be actually on the Warm Springs Reservation in the Youth Center. We've got a Portland metro area convening coming on May 12th, and that's going to be hosted at the Central Cultural in Beaverton. We'll do another one that's kind of both North Coast and Mid-Valley on May 14th at the Kroc Center here in Salem. And then we'll have another one in the kind of Southwest area zone, and that's Thursday, May 21st in Phoenix. In Roseburg at the Phoenix School. Again, Melissa, probably from Melissa, we will send you an email that says all of that and has links for registration. So you don't need to write it all down, but it's now on the record, it's in the recording, so people at least have the basic information around these convenings. Council members, you're strongly encouraged to attend as a sort of participant, as a way to hear from and meet some of our grantees and their staff. As I said, they're in various places in May, so maybe you can do something close to home, or maybe you're traveling for other work or something, so you could get to another one of the locations in different parts of the state. So we just wanted to make sure that was on your radar, let you know you're invited and encouraged to attend. Sally, I know, has been doing a lot of work on this, and other grant managers. Paul, is there anything you want to add, and/or Sally?
I want to recognize Sally taking over this work in her new position. Oh, sorry, Paul Self for the record, and the new position that we were able to hire towards the end of the year in December 2025. Really want to encourage if council members want to come see this interaction with our grantees. It's a requirement of our re-engagement grantees as well as our job and work readiness grantees. It's some new additions to that connection between disengaged youth, disconnected youth, and access in the workforce. This one is pretty cool because Sally's been working really hard to get some youth, like a youth panel in there to talk about the area. So let us know. Tanasia, Sally are the main leads on that work within that element. And this is something actually you've heard me talk about a lot. This is part of the re-engagement system. So when we originally received this legislation, it said we were going to do grants and do a re-engagement system. So one of our efforts in the system is to bring our grantees together across areas, and we have our re-engagement collaborative grantees that host that in that work. So it's been an evolution over the past 5 years, but very exciting and really excited to be able to offer that opportunity now that we have it up and going to the council members to come and attend. Thanks, Paul. Yeah. Sally, anything to add on those?
Sally Deck for the record. The only thing I'd add is that so the convenings happen twice annually, in the spring and then in the fall. And so this particular set of convenings in May are open not just to our current grantees, some of whom are required to attend, but then also open to prior grantees and some of the agency partners and other grantee partners. The theme for this convening is amplifying youth voice. And so each convening, we are working on getting a youth panel of youth who are already serving on youth advisory councils at their organizations to then be able to speak to like what works well when youth voice is intentionally sought, and then how is that feedback incorporated into the programming. So that's the theme of each convening. And then in the fall, the convenings will likely be a little bit tighter and probably just our required grantees, and that theme will be about outreach, which is a required element of some of the grants that they conduct outreach to out of school and out of work youth. And so our hope was that for this May convening, this set of convenings, that this could be a great opportunity for council members to come engage with some of our grantees and their partners, also some prior grantees that, as you'll recall, because of kind of funding and scores, there are some prior grantees who we know are continuing to do excellent work. They just aren't funded by us this biennium. And so they will be able to be invited to this May convening as well. And so our thought was that it could be a great opportunity for council members to come and understand better what our grantees are doing to incorporate youth voice into the planning, the input, the feedback of the programming that we fund. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Exciting.
Thank you, Sally. Again, Brian Dutton for the record. And yeah, to just one other point, we've had council members attend some of these in the past, so appreciate those of you who've been able to make it. Also, our juvenile crime prevention and county juvenile justice partners have also attended or been engaged. And so you're, just to be very clear, you would be invited to attend to the. And if somebody says, oh, I'd love to get this out to this organization or this place or this person, just let us know, let Melissa know. She can share the message with Sally and Paul, or let me know, and we can ensure that we're getting information out to counties, out to tribes, out to the range of entities that have been supported by us, either in the past or currently. All right, I'm going to move to my last area of update, and that's just like YDC member updates. Like, you maybe have heard a new name here. So first, want to thank Molly Rogers, who's somewhere on screen. There's Sally.
Sally doesn't know that she's being highlighted.
Yeah, we see you, Sally. Well, Molly's out there somewhere, and this is going to be Molly's last council meeting. I think technically her term ended at the end of the year, but we're like, Molly, stick with us. You want to get you acknowledged and recognized. So there's Molly. So Molly, deep and appreciation and thanks for your service and partnership, and collaboration, and continued involvement in our Juvenile Justice Committee. Right, just because you're not on the council, Molly knows this. I'm just saying it to everybody else. Just because you're on the council, you can still serve. So Molly, many thanks to you. Do you want to say anything?
What did you say at the very end?
I said the floor is yours.
Oh my gracious. No, no, I will not. Just appreciate everyone. I have wonderful people who are Bobby replacing me as a juvenile director voice. Super excited to have him at the table. He'll do wonderful. It's been fun. You don't get rid of me. I'll just hang out and I'll speak up during public comment. So
we might call on you occasionally. We'll see. Thank you, Molly. And yes, Bobby Divine. Oh, go.
It's very fun, the fact that I've been able to serve on the Commission on Children and Families for 8 years from the Wallowa County perspective. And then for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Advisory Committee for a period of time, I think for the full length that particular organization was in place. And now with YDC. And so it's been fun and an honor.
Thank you, Molly. So as Molly just said, Bobby Divine is joining us as a new council member. He's on here somewhere, juvenile director, and Bobby, do you want to, there he is. Do you want to, yeah, there's Bobby. Hey, say hello, introduce yourself. We're really glad that he's joined. He's been appointed by the governor's office. It's all official. So, Bobby Divine.
Yeah, super excited to be joining YDC, and yeah, just looking forward to meeting you all and being able to contribute in any way that I can. We'll attempt to be the best voice as possible, coming from kind of the juvenile director lens. So, super happy to be a part of this.
Bobby is the juvenile director down in Jackson County, and I'm not sure, Bobby, how long you've been in that role, but has been doing that for a while, working in that area. So, and we've just had a chance at some point a year ago, I think we were able to sit down with Bobby and his boss there, the kind of overarching department director, Kiki Parker, and again, thanks to Molly for helping make the connection. So, Bobby, welcome.
Well, thank you. And maybe it's important to just share a tiny bit about my background. So
Sure.
I've been a part of community justice for 10 years in a variety of different roles. I've kind of bounced around working both adult and youth sectors. My passion's always been working with youth, so I'm so ecstatic to go back to working in juvenile services. Have been the deputy director here at Juvenile for just about 2 years now, going on 2 years. But prior to working for community justice for the last 10 years, I actually was working in the mental health field for 10 years prior to that. So have experience in kind of both, and love to bring some of those lenses and experiences to the table. So
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. All right, some other council news.
Brian, excuse me, this is
Go,
Melissa
go, go.
Gallardo. Parsa Chanrami has her hand up.
Oh, Parsa, please.
Thanks, Brian. Parsa here. First, I wanted to thank Molly for her service on the YDC. I've learned so much from Molly, being a member of the council, serving alongside you on a committee before, and I'm so grateful for you to like just share your knowledge and expertise with us and break it down of like, hey, this is what it means, and this is how we're interpreting the law. Here are the challenge points we experience, and how do we remove barriers, ensure that our young people are successful. So thank you again, Molly, and I'm glad that you're not going to be a stranger. You're still going to be involved. And thank you for recruiting Bobby, and welcome, Bobby. We're really excited to have you on the council.
Thank you, Parsa. Any other questions or comments? Look around. Okay. Nothing, Melissa, online?
No, I see some chats.
Some chats.
Some thank yous for
Awesome.
Molly and welcomes for Bobby.
Very good. All right, I'll keep going. Again, Brian Detman for the record. So some other quick things, since we're now a little bit over time. I'll go fast on these remaining updates. Tabidi, who's our vice chair and like has a few more months on technically on his term, but he has decided to resign from the council, and he's served wonderfully and capably for 7 years plus. He's just got, I know he's working on a book and he's doing a ton of this, that, and the other. So he's not here today. I think he can make the June meeting so we can, more formally say our thank yous and our goodbyes to Tabidi. But we did get his resignation and taken him like off the list. So that but again, we'll try to get him in. He said he could pop his head in June. So be aware that we won't see Tabidi going forward. Also want to say Jeff Justison, who is our kind of in that position as an elected. He's a county commissioner in Wasco County. Jeff has agreed to take on the duties as chair of the Juvenile Justice Committee. Jeff has some background having managed detention and worked in juvenile justice in the past. So Jeff is going to take on that juvenile justice chair duty from Molly. So many thanks to Jeff for doing that. Jeff, I think you're somewhere there. Do you want to say anything? Say hi.
I'll just quickly
No
say
pressure.
hi and let everyone know I'm looking forward to doing this, and also that it's not the first thing that Molly's volunteered me for in my career.
Not the first and probably not the last.
And probably not the last.
Thanks, Jeff. So that's good. We have that piece. And then the last thing I'll say is Parsa's role as our chair, I think it concludes, yes, my notes tell me, concludes in June. And the chair roles are in our bylaws as a 1-year term of service. So we've got some work to do to replace Tabidi, to find a replacement for Parsa as chair. I can't remember how much longer Parsa's overarching term is, maybe through the end of the year, through the calendar year?
Through the end of November.
Through the end of November. So there's some definitely need and necessity to recruit either for now, as I said, the chair role, the vice chair role, and to kind of continue adding folks to the YDC membership. I welcome your thoughts and ideas or specific connections. Jeff, you've made some connections. I actually circled back to Stefan.
Okay.
Because we have some ideas about maybe going down there in June. So I've reached out to him, and they are also a grantee down there at Bethel School District, which is a re-engagement grantee, I'm pretty sure. So I know some of you've given me ideas over the years, and so I welcome them. We don't have a ton of time for a deep discussion on this. I just want to let you know, Melissa and I are like, this is a kind of important priority for us to get things continue to move in the right direction. I think we can spend a little bit more time on this in June, and between now and June, certainly again, welcome ideas, questions, or thoughts. But does anybody have, just in the next maybe 30 seconds to a minute, like any quick thoughts or comments on? And if you're going to raise your hand and say, "Hey, I'm ready to be chair," I will take that too. Dead silence. Molly and I might come up with some nomination ideas, because I'm good at that too. I know Molly is, so we might, she and I will put our heads together. Jeff.
Brian?
Jeff Parker for the
Okay.
Okay, just every exiting council member should provide 2 to 3 warm handshakes to Brian as their last and final act on this council to make sure that it has sustaining high quality leadership.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. Was that Parasa who was jumping in?
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. And this is Parasa Chanrami. If anyone is interested in serving as chair or vice chair, I'm happy to be connecting with you offline, one-on-one, to talk about what the experience is like, what the prep is like. Happy to support in having those conversations as you're mulling over potentially serving in this leadership role. So happy to be a resource, and just wanted to put that out there.
Great. Thank you, Parsa. All right. I'm going to move us forward unless there's anything else in the room or online. We're going to move to grants update. I think we'll start with you, Paul, and then Paul, take it from there.
Sounds good. Melissa, if you don't mind, or Tanasia, I think you're running the slide deck.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thanks, Tanasia.
Paul Sell, for the record, Associate Director, overseeing our youth grants. So if we can go to the next slide. Wanted to provide kind of context of where we're at with our grants. There's a lot happening. As Brian mentioned, we have solidified some sustaining funds that we around our prevention. So what you see on the screen currently is just our, essentially our portfolio of grants. Just a quick update. Our re-engagement opportunity grant. We have 36 executed grants for this biennium, and they're all executed and underway, working with grant managers. The job and work readiness, we have 18 executed grants. We had one that was not able to perform on that, but so we had some adjustments since that initial intent to award. And then our community investments, we are sitting at 17 executed grants. So if you're doing the math, I did it, so you don't have to worry about it. 71 executed grants for this biennium. Excited to say that they're all underway on that. That was a great thing to come back. I was gone for 6 weeks. I also wanted to just appreciation to the team for all the work that's been happening in the past 6 weeks. So that the fact we have everything executed is really tremendous on that side. We talked a little bit about the convening. So when we look at those other investments, the re-engagement collaborative grant, we have 5 of those. Those are all executed as well. Those were just actually what we call amendments for the folks that competed in the prior biennium to award those. And so in terms of our large investments, they are all well underway. It sounds like the team has been working with folks on the data. So with Bill and Molly and Cord taking on our grant data reporting, hearing great things on the new combined model of that. I think our grantees are really happy, as well as just the process. So it's been really exciting to see on that side. A couple other updates in our other investments, and you'll probably hear more of this in the youth committee update, but I know one of the things that's been outstanding is our youth-led grant making. in meeting with our youth members, what we kind of moved forward with, and after the retreat, we've been meeting in one-on-one. So Sally or myself have been meeting with our youth members, just one to gain more understanding of who they are, what they do in their daytime, other than this work, and also just gather ideas around what that can look like from their perspective, getting their voice in that work. And it's been really exciting to do that. I do want to publicly apologize, Savannah. I've not been able to connect with you. Obviously, I was out, so that's to come. But we've met with all of our young people, and what that has allowed Sally and I to do is to really understand kind of like next steps of the project. And so we hope to have a proposal to come in June around moving that forward, which was the timeline we were anticipating. So that it's kind of that 1 year biennium side of it. One of the things that we've kind of heard in those conversations, as well as just recognizing in the process, is insurance. That's just something we don't have much flexibility around. Everybody has to carry insurance, so that does create some challenges around that at the state level on that side, as well as how do we make this process not like the other process that takes 6 months, in terms of doing that, and then also just the process of processing our applications that come in. So if we had our youth committee members process 400 applications, that's frightening in my own head, because that's not fair. So some of the recommendations that we are really looking about is keeping a pretty tight pool that have already demonstrated some of those opportunities for this round of it. So our current grantees have access to some additional funds. There's some very technical things that I won't go into around that. But then how do we make that a competitive process or a lottery process is still in works, and that'll be really worked through with our young committee members and the youth committee on that side. So excited that we're moving forward with that. Again, working to develop that process to come back in June on that side. I want to hit pause because I've had only a couple of conversations. Sally has also been meeting with our young people. So Sally, not to put you on the spot, but anything to add about that youth-led grant-making process that we're so-called underway?
I think you covered it. I don't think there's anything else that I need to say other than a big thank you to those who have taken the time to meet with us. And yeah, I also just saw a note come in from Alex. I was able to have a really great conversation with him, and he shared some interesting information that, like, if this is the right time to just make note of how valuable it is for us to be investing in young council members in this way, and trying to kind of chart the path of what it looks like as an agency to be engaging with young people in a way that really benefits the agency and in ways that are hopefully really clear to everyone on the council, but also sometimes advantageous and beneficial in surprising ways to some of our younger council members. And so if there's if it's okay to pass the mic to Alex for a moment, there's just some cool benefits in us engaging with young council members, and that's all that I think I need to say.
Let's turn over to Alex.
He's finding his mute button.
Right, and Alex is on his phone, I believe. This is Melissa chiming in for Alex. Is Alex prepared to share?
If not, we can come back to it.
We can circle back.
We can circle back. I mean, we've got a youth committee update in the committee section. So, Alex, if you're listening, we'll come back to you. No worries. Paul, do you want to keep rolling?
The last thing I'll say about—
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you go.
Awesome.
Okay. Alex Robinson for the record. Sorry, on the phone to unmute, you have to hit *6 or something. It's really confusing. Anyway, I, a few months back, had applied for an internship with CCAI. It's the Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute. And it kind of was just on a whim, if I'm being honest. But I interviewed with them, and they were super happy to meet with me and to talk with me, and they would love to have me. So I got accepted to the internship, and I'm currently working on a policy report that I will have to present, because I will be going to DC for about a month and a half to internship in a congressional office. Just yesterday, I actually got to have my interview with the congressional office, and they said that they would be happy to host me and that they're very excited. It was actually Congresswoman Dexter of Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. So I'm super excited. I'm going to be interning with her in her office for about a month and a half. And then I'm also writing a policy report, and mine is specifically on the institutionalization of foster youth, and not as a genuine need, but out of convenience due to a lack of therapeutic placements or other placements. So with that being said, I would appreciate any help on that because it is very policy intensive and there's a lot of talk that I don't understand. But overall, that was just, I wanted to let everyone know on the council that I was going to be in DC and that I was going to be doing this.
Exciting. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think, Alex, I appreciate you sharing that and super excited for that opportunity. Again, Paul Self for the record. I think one of the things that I took away from meeting individually with our young council members is exactly that. I learned so much. I will admit, being in Klamath, meeting with Hannah in January, and no snow was weird. We both agreed on that. But I don't know, Sally, if you want to say anything about that. I think that's been one of the coolest things for me is just to understand a little bit more what all of our young council members are doing and how we might be able to play a little bit of a supportive role in that work. I see a thumbs up. Cool. Awesome. The last thing I will say about youth-led grant making is when Sally and I came back from the retreat, we started talking, Brian was involved. One thing we realized really quickly is a good idea can take a while to implement. And so want to just fully recognize that this is, I was hoping this would be like a 1 or 2 biennial plan and then it's perfect. It is not going to be. We're going to have to kind of take it in phases of like, how do we get to where we really want to? So that visioning we did at the retreat has not been lost and it's not going to be lost. We want to make sure we get the dollars out the door, learn, have our young youth committee members be able to wrestle with what that looked like, how we want to improve that process. If you think about where if I think about back 5 years ago when I didn't even know what an RFA really was, it's been a really adventurous process for it, and I think that's really what this youth-led grant making process will look like along the way. So just appreciation again to everybody in doing that work. Now, for the reason, and Taneja, you can go back to the slide that we were on, you might notice that one of the columns is in blue. And I'm excited that I might chime in a little bit, but Cord and Abe and Jared over the past 6 weeks since we learned of this funding being solidified around it, have worked on the process to bring to the council. And you might notice a new name, and I'll let Cord explain that, of the Safe Communities for Youth. But Cord, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Paul. For the record, this is Cord Bucher, Deputy Director. Hey, Taneja, can we go to the next slide, please? So you saw a new name there, and that's something we're going to propose in this presentation. But what we're going to talk about is what has historically been known as the Violence and Gang Prevention Grant. If we go to the next slide, I'll give you some background. So the purpose of this grant is very specific compared to some of our other youth grants. This one is supporting community-based prevention and intervention services for youth who are at risk of involvement in or victimization from community and gun violence. The goals of the grant you can see here kind of break that down further. But if you go to the next slide, this is all driven by language in our statutes. So the laws that tell us what to do say that the council shall prioritize funding for services related to the prevention of and intervention in community violence and gang activity, with an emphasis on public health approach and community-based programs. This is a slightly changed from the very original language, but the sentiment and focus remains the same. This is something that we have used the violence and gang prevention grants for since the beginning of grant making by the Youth Development Council. And we didn't actually launch violence and gang prevention grants in the spring of 2025, where we usually would have, for a couple of reasons. We had seen that there was a need for there to be some just a little bit of redesign and refocusing of this grant, given its statutory purpose, we were not always seeing proposals that really matched the goals of the grant, and performance varied. And then MOP happened. So as folks know, we've now got a very significant amount of money going for the same purpose directly to the city of Gresham, and in many cases funding the same organizations that have historically gotten our violence and gang prevention grant. So we're like, okay, how do we align this small grant with this bigger thing that we are getting money for and make it matter, make it focused? And then we were asked to identify places where we could take cuts if our budget got reduced. So then we paused that work and we said, well, given that we just got a lot of money for the city of Gresham to do this, and we have not launched this grant, it's not going to impact anyone who's gotten an award if this were to go away. And the type of work that this grant supported can still be happening. And so we put that on the table. And as we got into the legislative session, it started to look more and more like we were not going to get cuts. And so we just started work in the last few weeks, said, okay, we've got to figure this out, because if we get money, we're going to need to move forward with this grant. And Abraham Magana, who was mentioned earlier by Paul, he's really been the one who was already working on some rethinking of this, has done work with past grantees. We've done some work groups. He and Brian have been, participating in different roundtables talking about these issues to try to think through what this grant should do. So we've got now a proposal to put before you for what we'd like to do with the funds, which now we're going to have. We're proposing one to rename this thing. We've had a few different names kicking around, and they all started with violence and gang, or violence specifically. And we thought, what are we trying to accomplish here? Rather than just naming the grant after the problem it's trying to solve, what is the goal? And so this name that we're proposing doesn't change the purpose of the grant, but it just centers the outcome, safe communities for youth, rather than the problem. And the focus is on community and gun violence. So it's inclusive of gang violence, but not solely focused on that. It prioritizes intervention, but it's an addition to prevention. So we know prevention services happen. That's a lot of the work that Gresham MOP does. But we really want to see some work done to support the individuals who are actively impacted by community violence, the ones who are most at risk. You can go to the next slide, please. What we're going to talk about today is the RFA process. I can actually, if folks have questions or thoughts on just the general purpose of the grant, we can go back before I start talking about the breakout. Sorry, Tanisha, do you mind sliding back one? I want to give folks just a second to look at this. Just you see the statutory background, and then a little bit about what this grant is intended to do. Any questions or thoughts before we continue the process?
See anything, Melissa? No?
I do not think.
Nate put a comment.
Yeah. Cord, sorry, I'm jumping in. I saw Nate's comment about he appreciated the reframe of the name, so appreciate that, Nate, on that side. And I see Sam has his hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Cord. Did I hear that? So for the current 25-27 biennial, the funds for these grants haven't gone out?
They have not gone out. No,
okay.
We did not make
so
grants.
So nobody would be negatively impacted.
No, this isn't. Essentially, we did not open the RFA.
Okay. Yeah. And then the next question is, do these funds expire June 30 of 27?
They do.
So they only have so we have a quick timeline then, right?
Oh yeah. Well, then I think I'll answer that and maybe some of the follow-up questions in this presentation. But yes, the grant would end on June 30, and we have some ideas about how we address the fact that it is a really short runway for programs.
And Cord, just a quick kind of framing for maybe some new members to the council. This grant has typically gone out with the other RFAs, and so this is a carve out of that typical process we've had in the past. So this is in itself is a shift of what we've done in the past. So that, Sam, I'm just trying to add a little context to your question. Cord, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to be sure, because I was just like, we're kind of getting near the end of the biennial. Not near the end of the biennial, but now it's the time to start. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. No, that's a great question, and thanks for that note, Paul. Yes, so this grant historically would have been launched back in the spring of to start at the beginning of the biennium. And we had planned to launch it in the fall, but by the time that was rolling around, we had been asked to identify our reductions. And so that's why we put the whole thing on ice. And we didn't really know the final outcome of any budget adjustments in the short session until last week. But about midway through session, the winds were blowing in our favor. So we said, okay, like this looks like it might happen. So then we really picked everything back up and have begun in earnest to develop the RFA. On the next slide, it kind of lays out what we are bringing to you today. So what we have in our administrative rules for most of our grant processes is that the division will develop a process by which the funds are awarded and bring that to the council for the council's approval. And so this presentation is modeled on some that we've done previously for folks who haven't seen one of these. This breaks out on this slide, the kind of components of the grant making process that we're going to talk about. We're going to highlight some like maybe the critical pieces that we want you to know about, particularly things that are different from what we've done before. And if you have questions, you can certainly ask those as we move through this. So this is kind of the life of a grant application and award process. So this goes from when we launch release of the RFA or request for applications. We'll talk about some components of what is in the application. We'll talk about how the applications are evaluated to just determine who gets an award and who doesn't. The intent to award is where we announce who is getting awarded and what that looks like. And then there's also an appeal process. In our administrative rules currently, we have to identify an appeal process for our competitive grant processes. This has actually been a conversation in past council meetings, and we'll have an appeals process and we'll talk about it. What we've come to learn is that for grants, generally speaking, like the Department of Education Procurement Office, who help us manage our grant process, don't require an appeal process. And so we try to really focus on the appeal being that we have followed the process and the rules that we've set for ourselves and published. And so we'll get into what that looks like at the end of this process presentation. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll talk about the release. As noted, we're now almost halfway through the biennium. We're currently developing the application. Abraham had done a lot of work on it before we mothballed things. So he's pulled that back out. We've continued to work on it. I should note, Abe is not. He's actually out this week. Before we knew that we would be presenting this, he had already planned some travel. So I'm presenting on his behalf, but he's done a ton of work on this presentation and in developing this grant. Goal is to launch this RFA to open it for applications later in spring. We feel like that's realistic because we're actually building on a lot of work we've already done in terms of our systems and processes to launch a grant application. We've initiated work with procurement, and our hope is that we work with the person who we usually do, who knows our stuff really well and is able to help us do things expeditiously. And we've already kind of had some preliminary conversations about this. We are proposing an abbreviated application window. Our past RFAs have been usually at least 45 days. The application is open. I think we've even maybe gone up to 60, if I'm not mistaken. We are suggesting 30 days. We recognize that really tightens things up, but that is really something we're recommending because there's such a short timeline for grants to actually get started with the work. And, a whole extra month of the application being open means that everything else happens a month later. And our hope with launching in the spring would be that, awards would be made in the summertime, and ideally, programs are operating, sometime this summer if all goes well. If we go to the next slide, for some more things that kind of support this. So we're limiting applications to one per organization. We've at different times had different award limits or not had limits, but for this, because it's a small grant, we're saying that an organization may submit one application. In the previous RFAs that we did in spring 2025 for youth grants, the sort of full spectrum of grants, we had a total award limit. So an organization might get a community investment grant, and they might get a re-engagement grant, and they had a maximum amount of money that they could be awarded, and that limit does not apply here. It did not apply when we got approval for those processes. We didn't apply that limit to this grant. And because this is a really specialized set of services, we recognize that there's not a whole lot of organizations that are working in this space. And some of them we know are successfully awarded other funds. And we don't want to prohibit someone who is really good at this from applying because it is specialized, just because they've already been awarded other grants half a year ago. We are proposing not to fund new projects and implementation. And a big reason for that is the time frame. There's a limited amount of funding, and in the best case scenario, programs would have about a year before these current funds expire on June 30th. We are, I think, elsewhere in this presentation, it's mentioned, and this is for Sam's question, something that we're kind of putting in there is that we have the ability to extend agreements. We can't extend the money. These are general fund dollars, so those dollars must be used by June 30. But if we've got a grant agreement and that grantee is in good standing, doing good work, we can potentially extend an agreement, meaning if we have these funds for 2027, 29, we wouldn't necessarily have to do a new application and make everyone start over. We could apply those funds to an existing agreement so that folks could continue the work. So these are, for this particular process, 1-year grants, but we would propose that, like, rather than making everyone do another application in a year or less, that if programs are in good standing, they could just be extended and continue, again, because of the sort of specialized nature of this work. The last thing here in terms of application limitations is that we're going to require applicants to certify that they're not already being funded to do this from one of our other grants. We know that MOPE funds a lot of programs that are working in this area, both the area of work and the geographical area. And so as long as what they are getting this Safe Communities for Youth grant to do is not the same thing that MOPE is funding, that's okay. If you're trying to do work on the west side and you want to pursue this grant, that's fine. If you were trying to do work in Gresham, but Gresham is paying you to do prevention work with middle schoolers and you want to do street level outreach with teens and young adults, and you're distinguishing the service, the population, we'll have a way for folks to distinguish it, because we don't want to give someone 2 grants to do the same work. This also would apply for if they are a juvenile crime prevention grant recipient or a recipient of our Title II federal funds, which also, serve this. So these are just some of the limitations we've put on this. I think it's noted later in the presentation that the total amount of funding is about $880,000. So it is a small amount of grant funds, which is another reason that we're trying to really constrain it. Go to the next slide. I don't see any questions yet, but we'll pause and let folks kind of reflect and ask questions in a second. In this application, we're crafting questions to really get at 3 really core requirements. As mentioned before, we've sometimes had folks apply for this grant, and the work they're doing is not really violence prevention, gang intervention. It's sometimes just work with youth. So we want to make sure that the folks who are applying understand what this grant is for and that they can demonstrate that what they are doing meets the requirements. So there are 3 things that we're asking applicants to clearly explain. That one is that they are doing work with youth who are at risk of involvement in or victimization from community and gun violence. Another is that the work they are doing is ongoing. They are an established organization doing this work. It's not like, hey, we think we want to branch out, or this is an emerging issue and we want to figure out how to implement something. Because of the timeline, we don't think that's an appropriate use of the funds for this short period of time. Likewise, we're asking that they show they have established and ongoing partnerships, whether it be with schools, law enforcement, the justice system, behavioral health providers. How are they able to build out the services to support young people? What we've learned is that in order to really effectively deliver these services, it actually tends to require a multi-sector approach. And we want to see organizations that have both been doing this work and have solid connections with community partners to help them deliver all the services necessary. Can we go to the next slide, please? Last thing about application and eligibility. So we're not going to be using the sort of regions of the state. We're really focusing more on the areas where there are sort of known issues around community gun violence and youth-involved homicides in Oregon. Something that we've learned, and there was actually a bill to support this that wasn't successful back in 2025. There's no statewide database or survey on this issue. It's really information really is locally driven. Obviously, like the communities and agencies in these places compile the data. There's information about it, but what we know is based on what we're able to find, and that's both through research and also our participation in different tables. We know Portland Metro is where a lot of this issue is present. We know Washington County as well. We know Mid-Valley and the Salem area, there are issues. Historically, we've also had violence and gang prevention grants in Medford, as well as Ontario. I'm not seeing the same data lately. However, folks can say, hey, look, you've missed us. This is going on in our community. Here's some information for that. And people will be able to identify, hey, like, this is the community we serve, and this is our evidence that there is a need for work to be done to address community violence that's affecting young people. So the idea is not to sort of say it's only serving certain areas, but that they'll say, okay, we're in this region or area where we know this is happening, or we're out here, but you've overlooked that it's happening here, and we've got evidence to show that this is necessary for us to be a part of. And I think it's one way that we might find out where there is a blind spot, and we haven't identified every place in Oregon where this is necessary. I think the next slide may be where I'm going to take a pause and give folks a minute to just ask questions or make comments on what you've seen so far.
Say it again, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Parker, for the record. Apologies, Court. I have a question, and really it's more of a comment. What I'm hearing here, I'm very supportive of this, and absolutely will support getting this money out to the communities that are affected. But what gives me a little bit of heartburn is the idea that we'll keep this narrow applicant pool for the 27 to 29 instead of reopening it, and that has the optics of preferential treatment, which feels funny to me. And I guess my question around this would be, how do we avoid this in the future? Could we have awarded funds contingent or grants contingent on funding, gone through an RFA process without actual money in the bank, and put contingent letters to award? And the only reason I say that is it's a lot of work for a speculative potential, but I won't be on this council when we make those decisions next time, and I'm always cautious of handicapping a future council, a future legislator, a future anything, the decisions we make today.
Kurt, do you want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay. So the short answer is we have language in the RFA that allows us to extend, and so if as a committee we see where that is, we can. It does not require us to do it, and so we have flexibility to assess that. There's some pretty specific requirements around that in terms of the pool and those options. Doing a contingent, yes. The short answer is yes, and I think that's a noted piece of it, and I appreciate you bringing it up because I think it's something we will want to wrestle with as we see this come out. One of the things that you probably don't see in this presentation is the history of this grant and which organizations typically have it. And what we've seen at least what I've seen, is a lot of times, as Cord said, it is a pretty narrow pool of people serving it. And so I'm intrigued to see who it is. So the short answer is no, we are not required to do it. And we can look at a contingent if we were in a similar circumstance the next program. So. And I know Jared's behind the scenes taking notes of certain things too, because Jared works on the next layers of that. So I don't know, Cord, anything to add to that?
No, thank you, Paul. That was helpful. I see we have some more questions and more hands up in.
Let me jump in real quick. I see Christina has a hand up. Brian Detman for the record. Jeff, part of what I hear is, it was a tough
decision, I think, in the spring to say, let's hold off because we wanted to refine and improve the RFA just generally. Then we have the budget issue, which we said, okay, let's not release it now. People jump through hoops for no reason. I think what I'm hearing you say is that kind of a recommendation or an idea that when we get to the end of this biennium, that we really strongly either consider or just not extend all those grants. Is that, I mean, like that we could do it, Paul's point, but we probably shouldn't extend. We should release, assuming the money is there, a new RFA with whatever we've learned in this 1 year and give a broader opportunity to a greater number of folks, right? So is that kind of what I'm hearing? Like, we don't want to unnecessarily limit.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Jeff Parker for the record, and that's absolutely it. Like, we're already saying it's a 30-day window.
Yeah. So
we're handicapping this in ways that if we can, we should consider that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it looks like Christina has a comment with her hand.
Actually, this is Christina McMahon for the record. Brian, aren't you excited you didn't have to remind me? I just actually have a couple of questions. I want to make sure that I'm tracking this correctly. So when we were talking about the limitations on the applicant pool, so if an organization who doesn't currently receive any grants from YDO already has a program in place that fits this criteria, and they wanted to, for example, expand it by using the grant to add more staff so that they could reach even a bigger, have a bigger impact, they would be eligible to apply even if they've never had any sort of grantee relationship with YDO. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
That's my question. Oh, is there a caveat, Brian? Is there a caveat?
Christine, Paul saw you. You had 3 people answering your question, so that's why we were laughing. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just a straight up yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. The second question is what is the maximum and or minimum amount an organization can apply for? I wasn't really catching that. I'm sorry if I missed something.
Corey, do you want to get to that? Yeah.
Yeah, it is in the presentation, but we're recommending a maximum award of $150,000. And part of that is, it's given that it's 1 year, we don't want to award more than an organization can realistically spend and then have money returned.
Right. Great. Thank you. That's all I wanted to make sure that I was tracking, and obviously I wasn't fully tracking. So thank you, Corey.
No, we haven't done it yet. It'll be in there.
Great. Thank you.
It's always good when I get questions that I answer later because it means I've answered the right questions. So that helps. It's reassuring.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think I see Bobby Devine with a hand up. Hey, Bobby.
Hi, Bobby Devine for the record. So just curious, in regards, it mentions that there needs to be some sort of like data that alludes to a community kind of having suffering from gun violence or violence in general. Like, what are the requirements in regards to proving that? And as you can imagine, like smaller communities with smaller population sizes, although per capita they might have some gun violence issues or concerns, but might not arise to the actual quantity that larger communities and populations might face.
Cord Bucher for the record. That's a great question. We've done this a couple of ways in past grants, and I think it will probably be more of the latter. One is that we will sometimes provide the data and say, here's some resources you can use. And the other is that we can say, just show us what you've got. Just show us that you have something that you can cite a newspaper article, you can cite a study, you can, youth attesting to you. If you're already doing this work, then you're probably going to say, like, you've got some kind of indicator of why you're doing the work and what your success looks like. So it can be pretty open in terms of how you're going to demonstrate that. Like our goal is not to try to like have a litmus test of like, is this a real problem or not? But we want folks to at least demonstrate they understand that we're trying to address, violence that, and particularly gun violence that's happening within the community that youth are involved in. And, there may be data that it could be, data from the justice system. It could be, that a terrible event happened. You're saying this happened and it revealed to us that there is this issue and we've been working on it. And I think, to tie it back to, what I said earlier, like we would provide the data if there was actually a great repository of information. But, at least as far as I've been able to, there isn't like a central state database where this particular issue is really being aggregated and understood. It's really just kind of at the community level that folks are tracking this. So that's, our hope is that we learn, that folks are telling us, hey, this is how we know this is a problem. This is how we're trying to measure success. And I think back to Christina's question, we don't want to limit the folks that we've already funded. And you may be doing this work and you say, hey, we've got one outreach worker and we need to hire 2 more because there's a big need. So expanding an existing effort is fine. What we just want to make sure of is that if we enter an agreement with someone and they've got a year to get this grant off the ground, that we know that sometimes with projects that have not yet started work, it can take 6 months or longer before they're actually able to do anything. And we just want to avoid that situation, given the short time frame.
Hey, Court, Brian Devin here for the record. Anya has a point, and I know we're about 15 minutes over, so we gotta pick up the pace.
Parsa has her hand up.
And Parsa too. But we'll get there. We'll figure it out. This is good, healthy conversation. Just noting the time. Anya.
Just very briefly. So Anya Sakino, Associate Director, Youth Development, Oregon, for the record. So since I don't throw away electronic information, I store a lot on my computer. So what I was looking at in 2013, we had a significant amount of federal funds in both gang prevention program area of Title II funding, but also juvenile crime, JVAC, which used to be Juvenile Accountability Block Grant. And we asked counties to participate in the survey regarding gang activity, and I have all this information for pretty much every county that responded. So Bobby, mind if I put you on the spot? So I'm looking at Jackson County right now, and it was Joe Ferguson who responded. I just want to go through a list of questions that were asked, and maybe there'll be a consideration to use similar questions to establish the need this time around. So questions were kind of very specific and very simple. And we also asked people to respond collectively, not just one person. So for Jackson County had a gang task force, and there are several members of that. I'm just not gonna go through the list. So the questions were, how many established youth gangs are you aware of in your county? So Jackson County responded between 1 and 5. The next question was, how many juvenile designated gang affiliates are you aware of in your county? So it's 1 to 50. Next question was, how many gang-related violent crimes were reported in your county in 2010? So and then in 2011, because we were trying to get some information from previous years, and the response was 26 or more. So and it keeps going on, like graffiti incidents, all these things. So there is a way to get answers, like to survey questions to establish things. And Christina, you might remember that. I think you might have been in Multnomah County back then. So anyway, so we got that. And another point I'd like, so if interested, Cord and Abe, I will be happy to share all this information. It might be dated data, pun intended, but the questions are still relevant. We also did a survey with tribal communities as well. And there was a big movement and a big problem with gangs in tribal communities. I remember attending a gang in Indian Country Summit that Grand Ron was hosting about 10 years ago. So, and that is in response to I would suggest not limiting the area that we decided where gangs are, because we necessarily have a not know where they are. So it would be better to get some kind of input from both counties and tribes.
Andy Leonard, I thought the same thing actually with the tribes competing with these other ones. I think it's I think that we need to get more data from our tribes. We looked at, like we said, article news, numbers, gang violence data. I think that's the thing that the 9 tribes need to provide if we're going to apply for this gang grant. So I was wondering about the same thing about competing with these other. I mean, you're talking about the cities compared to reservations. So a lot of it balances out as far as gangs and gun violence. It's either or in some of these areas, reservations and stuff like that. But I think being a representative, I think I can get some of that data for you guys because we just had a 9 tribes meeting, so prevention meeting, so that can be brought up in our next one. So.
Yeah, Parsa.
Parsa has a comment.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate folks talking about data that had been collected in the past. And I feel like if there's ways that we can continue to streamline that so that we're not creating duplicative questions for anyone interested in applying, the more we streamline, the better. And it helps remove barriers for potential grantees. And then the other thought I just wanted to add is I just a sort of more of a note of caution is when we communicate around the prioritized areas, I worry about some of the unintended barriers, whether they're real or perceived, that we create for communities beyond the metro area that might be interested. So I just thinking, very intentionally about how we frame that so that we're not deterring a group that might actually really benefit from some funding in the area that is targeted and so forth. So just something for us to think about. And then a process question I had was, Brian, I know you mentioned that there was a vote. I think it was associated with this grant. So I just wanted to check the process and what you needed from the council at this time.
Yeah, we know Court's got a few more things to share, but at the end, we do, want to bring this to a vote. So that's where we're headed. It's Brian for the record. I think so. Back to you, Court.
All right, thank you. Thank you for all the input and the questions. Taking some notes, and I think I'll just say very quickly that we're not anticipating there being like a feeling or the areas where we know that there is the most issue around this are like elevated just by virtue of where the applications are. I think in the original slide deck, it was really like, here's where we know this is happening, but we know that it may be happening elsewhere. So I appreciate the caution there. If we go back to the slides, I'll take us to slide 14, I think in the deck. So this is the evaluation portion. We're proposing here something a little bit different, and this is again kind of related to trying to make sure that we're really getting programs that are aligned with the goals. We have a minimum qualifications review that procurement does. That's just to say, are you an eligible entity, for example? Do you have if you're a nonprofit, are you registered as a business in Oregon to be doing this work? We have sometimes had minimum qualifications related to like aspects of the application, but we're pulling that out, or we're proposing to pull that out and have what we're calling a program requirements review. And this is just making sure that the application is for a program that is to address youth violence, gang prevention, gun violence prevention. The reason behind this is that, for example, in the past, we've had this application somehow got circulated to youth experiencing homelessness programs. And we had a bunch of applications from youth shelters for homelessness services. That isn't really, it was I think, an accident. They probably should have gotten the community investment application, and they applied here. And that isn't what the purpose is. We also know that we had well over 100 organizations that applied for grants last spring and did not get funded. And we want to just do as much as we can to help folks understand what this is and what it's not. And we don't want someone to, submit an application for something that is not at all connected to this. So we want to review, again, are they identifying a need in their community? And I think all the things that have been recommended around how we make that easy to do, we would implement it. We don't want to make it a barrier, but we just want to know that you understand the purpose of the grant and you've identified need, that you can show you've been doing the work and that you have partnerships. And so this would just be, essentially most likely internal review, probably with procurement oversight. We might involve some outside folks. But we want to make sure that before we send it to reviewers, that we've at least looked at what the project is and what's proposed. Historically, we've never had more than, I think, 10 applications for this grant. We've sometimes had 8 applications and money for 8 programs to be funded. So it hasn't been one where there's a high demand, because most of the time folks look at it and say, okay, I understand what this is. But we are trying to manage, we don't want to get a whole lot of applications that are not necessarily germane and then have reviewers spend time reviewing them, given the really narrow scope. So that's what we're proposing to do, and then move to score evaluation. If we have more applications, then we can fund outright. Because in the past, we've sometimes gotten enough where we've been able to fund everything that was sent to us and had money left over. Sometimes we've had 1 or 2 more than we can fund or partially awarded grants. But if we have more than we have money for, we would move to rubric evaluation, which is the same thing we've done generally for all grants in the past. And again, we would only do that if we needed to. So this is different, and we propose it just because we want to try to make sure that we don't have to take a long time with evaluation, recruiting volunteers, and having them score stuff that may potentially not be a fit. But we've also seen the precedent is we don't get a whole lot of applications for this in general. Next slide, please. So total award amount is $881,000. Maximum award $150,000. We'd estimate making 5 to 7 folks. As far as a minimum, I think that question came up earlier. We may not set a minimum, or it might be fairly low, like 50,000. Given that it's 1 year, we don't want to make people ask for more than they can use. We also don't want to get proposals for like $10,000. Funds would be usable through June 30th. The potential extension we've mentioned, and I think we could certainly talk to the council about that again before we get to the 27-29 RFA process. The next slide is the appeal process. This again, like historically, the appeal is not for people to appeal their scores. It's not so someone could say, I don't like that I got a low score and didn't get funded. The appeal is so that if someone says, hey, like you did not follow the rules you set out, so you've awarded funds to an eligible organization, or you did not, like we've actually not had a successful appeal occur in the last biennium. Almost every appeal that did get submitted was a request to change their scores. And we don't want to do that, but we do want to give folks a chance to say like, hey, like you set out a process and you did not follow it. And so we do create a window for folks to do that. But we also will do the same thing we did in 25, 27 RFAs, where we had an application feedback request. So you don't have to appeal your scores to talk to us about them. If you're like, hey, I want to see my comments, I want to see, I want to talk to someone at YDD about my scores and understand better what the reviewers saw, or why, you did not think this was appropriate. We can allow folks to do that. They don't have to appeal to get feedback. And that has been very popular. Paul could say the number, but I think we've had dozens and dozens of organizations engage in that process. And I think that gets us to the next slide is probably, again, letting folks kind of ask questions about this stuff. So I'll open it back up.
Asked, but
sorry, you were
was I muted?
muted.
Okay, Brian Bettman for the record. Not seeing hands, but thanks, Cord. Yeah, I think that evaluation process in summary, I think is going to be a little bit more truncated, just because we don't have a lot of time. And we also want to still follow a straightforward process, but we don't have as much time, so more time spent in evaluation means less time for folks to actually make that money work out in the community. So I think we've come up with something that feels still appropriate and will get us both the kinds of applicants we want and the ultimate decisions that we need to make. And I think it's going to rely quite a bit on our staff to do some of that, like minimum qualifications review. Like, is this gonna accomplish? Is there the experience there, and is this going to accomplish what we're trying to do in terms of this broader, safer communities goal? So that's why that process is designed that way. I think in court, again, I'm just out of the interest of time, and I don't want to slow down. We'll catch up one way or another. I think we want to bring this to a vote, and I don't know, court, if you have like a proposed motion or what, but I think a critical thing that I heard is, I think I heard it from Jeff and from Andy and probably from Anya and her comments, that this piece around prioritized communities, like we probably just need to, for lack of a better word, like rethink that. Like, so if as I'm hearing the feedback and your input, we don't need to emphasize the prioritized communities part. I think we can talk about the importance of the work in various parts of the state, that you not be a grantee in some of the other grants that we have. But I think if you're interested in putting a motion on the table, like we can not have that language in the RFA in a way that's going to have those unintended consequences, I think, which Parasa also spoke to. So know that we can not have that language, in our announcements. Court, anything else we want to add or put up on the screen?
I've got another slide that has the proposed action, which we would humbly request a council member make. And I think we could say that it would be this with the caveats that we do not include prioritize communities as a factor in the application, and that we would come back to the council to discuss extending agreements before doing so for 2027-29. So those two pieces of feedback I think are really important, but otherwise we would put this action to the council for someone to make a motion.
Looks like Sam has a comment or question. Court. Sam, Brian for the record.
Yep. Hi, Sam Cole from for the record. I don't know about your grantees, but my grantees have said they don't like it when we extend contracts to the next biennia. So that's why we have all of our contracts end at the end of the biennia for their accounting purposes and keeping track of funds and so forth. I don't know if you run into that. I'm just saying.
And Sam, this is Brian for the record. Many of our grantees actually like that. They don't want to have to jump through a bunch more paperwork hoops. So adding things, our counties, our community-based nonprofits, tribes, et cetera, often are like, you're going to make us go through a whole application process again? So many, if not necessarily all, but many of our, I'll even say most of our grantees say, can we extend this? So we use that. We have the option to use it. This instance, I think we'll not do it, and then without some conversation at this table.
All right. Brian, are you ready for me to start the process for?
I am, and I see Jeff's hand up.
Jeff Parker for the record. Thanks. I was going to formally. Oh wait, you took the motion down. I was going to formally.
Go ahead, Jeff.
But now the words are gone.
Can someone screen share again?
I will formally move that the YDC approve the 26 to 27 YDO State Communities for Youth Grant RFA process as proposed but amended to remove the specific communities and also add that the Youth Development Council would take action to before we extend those grants into the next biennium. As written and presented by CORD, the RFA release, application, evaluation, and scoring intent to award and appeal. Hopefully that motion captures everything we've discussed.
Thank you. Jeff Parker makes the motion. Can I get a second?
This is Kim Weer, council member. I second the motion.
Thank you for seconding the motion. Any discussion? Can't quite see any folks in the room, but I'm not seeing any hands in the virtual space. All right, Melissa, will you call the roll?
I will. Thank you, Parsa. This is Melissa for the record. Zan Ojero.
Zan votes aye.
Votes aye. Thank you. Daniela Avila. Parsa Chanrami.
Aye.
Andrew Copeland. Bobby Devine.
Aye.
Yolene de la Garza Hernandez Lopez. Jenny Glass.
Aye.
Jeff Justison.
Aye.
Nate Latanzio.
Aye.
Kim Le.
Aye.
Andy Leonard.
Aye.
Christina McMahon.
Aye.
Jeff Parker.
Aye.
Savannah Relatos. Alexander Robinson. Can you say that again, Alex?
Aye.
Alex, okay, we heard you on your phone. Thank you so much. Molly Rogers.
I feel like for my last vote, I should say no just for the fun of it, but I can't. Aye.
Molly, the zinger. Classic Molly Rogers. Thank you so much. You have been counted. Hannah Schroeder, Janelle Theobald. 1, 2, 3, 4. That passes.
And then Melissa, for the record, Jocelyn de la Garza voted in the chat.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay,
for the record. All right. Thank you, Melissa. Motion passes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Parsa. Thank you, council. Yeah, that took a little more time than we anticipated, and time well spent. Right? We want to get these things right. We're bringing this to you, you know, in a given the short session and all the budget stuff. So again, thanks for taking the time and being patient. I think what will end up happening, I'm just going to say this out loud, is we're going to keep it rolling. If you need to take a break or just go off screen for a second or whatever, do what you need to do. Grab some coffee. For those who are in the room, we're going to move to the data presentation. We'll probably take that right up till at least noon, maybe a little longer. We'll get our lunches, have a break. I think our grantee presentation, maybe we'll start it a little bit later. But I think, as I understand it, we probably have like 15, 20 minutes of like, or 10 or 15 minutes of like, here's what we're doing, and some time for questions. So I think and hope we can catch up a little bit. I don't want to shortchange our wonderful grantee, but I think we had an hour for that. I bet we can do it in a shorter time period. So I think we can catch up during that point. Does that sound right, Melissa?
This is Melissa Gallardo. Yeah, we had about 45 minutes for her presentation and discussion. Yeah. So I'm wondering now if we want to grab our lunches and take our break now, so we can just be settled for data, and so break now and then come back and we're good
Melissa,
for the rest of the meeting.
Lovely logistics. So
does that sound okay?
I think, yeah, we'll grab lunches. If those are, so give us till 11:45, 7 minutes.
Yeah. Perfect. 11:45.
11:45. So online, we're actually going to grab our lunch, take a break, and then we'll be back here. And then Bill and Cord will get you guys started right around 11:45. And Molly, yeah, good idea, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tanisha.
Are they here? Did you see them, Melissa?
Yeah, lunches are.
Thank you, everybody. Parsa, I'm gonna keep us rolling. One thing, Cord, I'm just gonna pick up the last bullet, if you don't mind, because I think it's a sentence or two. Again, Brian Detman for the record. Appreciate everybody's getting back, hopefully getting some food or at least hydration. We're going to get started with our data presentation here in a second, and then we'll, but I want to finish up the conversation because we did have one other bullet point, which is a short update around the fact that there are funds that we get from the federal government through the Social Services Block Grant or Title 20, and we are still awaiting word on, well, still awaiting paperwork, I should say. Still awaiting the piece of paper that says that the funds are there. We did have a quick meeting a day or two ago, or maybe it was just yesterday, with our partners at Oregon Department of Human Services, which actually the funds from the federal government go to ODHS, and then they find their way over to us through the Department of Education. They are seeing that funds are flowing, if you will, from the federal government in this general realm, but we still don't have a piece of paper that says that the Title 20 or SSBG funds are there, and we, in our work with ODE and their procurement folks and just our own peace of mind, want a piece of paper to show that the dollars are there before, and we're talking around, I think, Cord, correct me if I'm wrong, $6 million that we will then pass along to existing community investment grantees. So we're just holding back until we have a piece of paper. So that's just the last update on the grant side. It's unfortunate that we don't have that piece of paper. I know the organizations that receive funds from us are eager to have the additional funding, but until we have that piece of paper, we don't want to take any chances. Cord, did I capture it? I think so. You're writing in the chat. Great. I'm gonna now turn it back to you, Cord, because now we're gonna talk about data. And again, we've got until 2 o'clock, folks. So we'll figure this out. We'll catch up. Appreciate the patience. We'll get our grantee going presentation after this data presentation. So Cord, back to you.
All right, thanks everybody. Cord Bucher for the record. I'm back with another presentation, but I will try to keep my part fairly brief and pass it on to my colleagues, Molly and Bill.
Hey, Cord, can I say one thing?
Yes.
Sorry, Brian Detman again for the record. Again, many thanks for, I see Christina joined us earlier, but welcome, Christina. Good to see you. I don't know if other new council members are in or out, but I did hear some voices on the vote. So again, appreciate your participation. And I think Rachel Mosier from the governor's office has also joined the call. And so Rachel, appreciate your sitting in on the call for whatever time you have as we kind of get into data. So, okay, back to you, Cord. Sorry.
All right, thanks, Brian. Cord Bucher, can we go to the next slide, please? I am going to talk a little bit about just sort of high level how we've been working to improve just our data reporting, particularly to the council. So Molly and Bill and I have been working together regularly. Molly and Bill for a long time have been our de facto internal data team. And I've been meeting with them to sort of develop different projects around our data reporting, data collection. And something that we're working on is trying to establish a regular reporting cycle. So over the course of the biennium, when we're collecting things, when we're turning it into reports, when we're presenting it to the council or to the legislature, we're trying to standardize some of that because a lot of it happens consistently at the same time. So we want to establish a biennial reporting schedule so that we have steady collection and processing of data, regular reports to the council and legislature, and we have information available when we need it for the key decision points in the grant life cycle, which is roughly 2 years long. We've kind of built something out on the next slide to give you a sense of what this is looking like right now. This is a table that shows essentially this 2-year cycle. Starting now in March, we're kind of thinking of this as a kickoff point. And this presentation, is about our youth grants, so community investment grants, as well as re-engagement, and now job and work readiness would be part of that in the future. We've always presented in March. We've usually presented the last year of data. This is actually the first time that we're focusing on full biennium data. So this presentation is on our grant services 2023 to 25. Today, we'll give a quick high-level numbers for community investments, grants, as well as re-engagement last biennium. And then in June, we'll be back and we'll actually do a presentation on re-engagement. Last year, we did both combined, and it's a lot to compress into one presentation. So we're splitting that up. And then the NPC evaluation presentation, that happens every 2 years. And we're planning to have that in September. That's a presentation on the juvenile crime prevention work of county juvenile departments, tribal prevention programs. The stuff that's in orange and italicized are things we've not really done before, but things that we think we can or should do. So I think that in September, we'll be beginning work on our next RFAs, and something we would probably want to bring to the council is just information about the data collection that we do in our grants, to talk about what we are doing or planning to do in the next biennium, changes or issues that we see we need to address in future reporting. In December, we are going to bring something that was requested by council member by Jeff Parker back in I think September's council meeting, about data on our review process. So reviewer data, of scoring data. We think that the best time to actually do that and to do it regularly is to inform you about why we were doing certain things in the review process that we propose for our RFAs. So in December, when we're bringing a proposal to the council for the next biennium RFA processes, we'd also have some data to explain what we see in the scoring process, why we're keeping things the same, or why we're changing things based on what that data is showing us in terms of scoring trends, reviewer trends, et cetera. In March next year, we'll do what we've normally done every March, which is 1-year data. So similar to what you're going to hear about today, we would talk about the first year of this current biennium, so the year we are in. By next March, we would have that data to share, just sort of a progress report on our youth grants. That following June, we're working on developing data matching with the Department of Education. So we do not collect every bit of information about the youth we serve in our grants, but we're collecting more information to allow us to match what we collect with information in ODE's student data systems. And we're piloting some matching. And so we want to actually start to talk about what we can see when we collaborate with the Department of Ed around educational outcomes for youth that we serve in our grants. That one is still pretty speculative, but it's something that we're working on, in the data team. We always provide some data on the response to our application processes. That usually happens in the September following our RFAs. And so that there you can see in September at the end of the cycle, that December, something we've never done, but also think would be valuable would be to present on the qualitative data, the narrative reporting that we collect. We get a lot of narrative from grants, and we've never really put together something for council to really capture trends, high-level information about our narrative information. So we want to try to put that to better use and to bring something back to the council there. So essentially that would be, the end of the cycle. And then that following March, we'd be starting all over again, talking about the biennium that we are in now currently. So this is just something that we're putting together to give us a sense of when things are coming, to help us plan, prepare, build the systems that we are in, so that it makes it easy for us to achieve these timelines. Next slide. I'll just note that there's some data or reporting that is not incorporated yet. This doesn't mean that we won't bring it to the council. We just don't quite know where these things would fit, but just noting we collect other data from other grants that I think will gradually find its way into this cycle. I mean, these questions here were more for the team. Brian, if you want to, say anything about it, we just wanted to put this in front of the council to give you a sense of our work to try to bring more structure to the data collection and reporting that you see. I don't know if anyone's making comments. The microphone is off in the room.
Sorry, Brian.
No, it's all right. Brian Detman for the record. Thank you, Cord. In the interest of time, I think we'll try to keep it moving. I'll say two things real quick. The NBC research report on our juvenile crime prevention program, my recollection is that sometimes there's some racial and ethnic disparity information in it. Anya, am I wrong?
It's not disparate information,
But-
but it's broken down by
race?
demographics.
By demographics. Okay, so they are.
You can see some differences.
You can see some. So Cord, keep that somewhere in the back of your head, and that was it. I don't know. I think we should get Bill and Molly on, doing their thing.
Terrific. I'll pass it to Molly, who's going to just quickly talk about re-engagement at a high level, and then she'll pass it along to Bill Hansel. Hey, Molly.
Thanks, Cord. Molly Burns for the record. Thanks, Tanisha. So as Cord said, we're going to take a very brief look at a couple re-engagement numbers. The goal here, as Cord said, is really to dig in, clean up, analyze the 23-25 two-year biennial data for re-engagement. And so the next time that we're together, we'll be doing that. And then just to give a little bit of context and sort of a teaser, we just brought a couple numbers for you, starting with some 21-23 biennial data. So re-engagement programs in 21-23 served 3,313 youth. This is like unique youth or an unduplicated head count. And of those program participants, 745 youth earned their high school diploma or GED. And then you can see in the 23-25 biennium that both of these numbers went up. And so in 23-25, re-engagement programs served 4,186 youth in re-engagement services. Again, these are unduplicated numbers. If we look annually at the program counts of the program enrollments, in the 23-25 biennium, you'll see a number closer to 2,500 youth served in the first year, and then closer to 2,900 youth served by re-engagement programs in the second year. But across the 2 years, we have 4,186. And of those youth, re-engagement program participants earned a total of 834 high school diplomas or GED during their participation with these re-engagement programs. And so next time we'll take a deeper dive into the 23-25 re-engagement data. So this is kind of more of a teaser. And at this point, I will pass the mic to Bill Hansel.
Thank you, Molly. For the record, my name is Bill Hansel. I am the data lead and a grant manager as well. Next slide, please. This slide here is really a comparison, kind of mimicking the slide you just saw. Comparison between bienniums. In the 21-23 biennium, we had 10,255 youth served. And in the 23-25 biennium, we have at least 18,321 youth served. I'll explain that asterisk there, which notes the count may actually be higher on the next slide. Thank you. So one of the things that happened when I was doing the roll up is a little ghost in the machine took some youth ID numbers, and consequently, when I unduplicated youth in the solutions grant, the number was actually lower. It went down. Now that isn't possible, so it alerted me to something wrong. And I just haven't been able to get to the solution yet, but that will be forthcoming. So I plugged in the year one numbers for solutions, which was 1,241. That will actually, I estimate, probably go up by another 200 to 400 youth in that number. So we may be closer to around 1,850 youth served. But anyway, that is the asterisks. By way of review, 986 participants in workforce and 16,094 in promise. So the bulk of that increase is driven by programs in the promise grant stream. One of the things that when you look at the data, in retrospect, I see how far we've come and the changes we've gone. We no longer have solutions, and workforce is now known as job and work readiness, and is not is a separate RFA now, not considered to be part of the community investments, but its own standalone. As we look at gender, I'll point out, it looks like that missing one is pointing to the blue. It's actually pointing to an invisible little sliver there because it's less than 1%. And the non-binary other category is actually that light blue. But you can see females make up 54% compared to males at 43%. When we begin to look at race ethnicity, we go starting with the highest, white, then Hispanic Latino, and then Black African American. And these are the race ethnicities as ODE reports them, which includes the multiracial, which is abbreviated MU. And so any youth that is two or more races, non-Hispanic, gets counted as multiracial in the way that ODE reports to the federal government. Next slide, please. Taking a little deeper dive, this is now gender by initiative. You can see that in solutions and workforce, males actually outnumber females, and in promise that flips, and females outnumber males. Next slide. Here we're looking at race ethnicity by initiative, and you can see that again, promise is driving these numbers. And one of the things to note about, I tracked down in the programs that were serving the solutions population, two of the programs that got the ID stripped serve primarily Hispanic Latino youth. So I expect that number to go up and may even eclipse white when that gets, but anyway, we'll get pretty close to that. So these numbers are also higher, especially with the Hispanic Latino population and the Black African American, as well as the American Indian, which is abbreviated AM, are higher than the student population. So that means we're getting a good representation of a variety of race ethnicities that we serve. Next slide, please. Here is age at grant participation start date. And this is an interesting slide because it brings up a point that is of real interest. And probably the most interesting thing that I found in the analysis, and that is we're seeing some programs in terms of the number of youth served pulling away from the pack. And there is one program that served over 5,000 youth and 3 or 4 more programs that served over 1,000 youth. And that brings a handful of programs to almost 50% of the youth served, less than 10 programs serving over 50% of the youth. One of the things that it does, the program that served 5,000 youth, and they didn't report till year 2, which is also one of the reasons the numbers jump so highly, but they serve grade school youth. And so we see this spike here in the starting at about 8 to 11 years old. That would almost be completely wiped out in terms, those numbers would drop below the teen numbers if you took out one program that's reporting. So our numbers are at a point where we can see certain statistics heavily influenced by a handful of programs. So keep that in mind. Next slide. This is the promised participation by funding type. And the orange represents our Title 20, and the blue represents our general fund. You can see that the Title 20 had 9,700 youth participating, and the general fund 6,290. Again, driven by a few reporting programs, reports that are serving a number of youth, but it's also relatively proportional to the difference in funding. I believe the funding is approximately 2/3 to 1/3, or a little more than half on the promise side. But I think it's closer to 2/3 are Title 20 and 1/3 is general fund. And let's keep right on rolling to questions and discussions. Let's see. I went through that pretty quickly, hoping to make up some time, but again, I just one of the interesting facts is that for several years, our programs really tended to hover, like 500 was a large reporting number, and now we're seeing programs in the thousands. Anticipating some questions, those are generally programs that offer a kind of a group mentoring, for example, an affinity group support like girls groups or other type of group mentoring programs. And the largest reporter was delivering art curriculum in grade schools on the North Coast area. I see a hand up.
Zan speaking. I wanted to just say thank you. I really both appreciate the start of a schedule for regular data reporting so that we don't have a huge data meeting, but just have that distributed in a logical way across the year, and this report. And it's really lovely to see the fact that now that we have multiple years data and we have a better sense for the questions we're asking, that you can actually start to make observations about the population we're serving and the grantees that are serving those folks. And so I just want to say that that's appreciated. And thank you for telling us who some of those grantees are that are serving such large numbers. I would have thought it was the Boys and Girls Clubs type programs. So it's interesting to note that it's not metro area and it's not after school care.
Thank you. One of the things we're hoping to do too, if any questions arise about deeper dives, I will love to answer those questions or do some additional comparisons besides this analysis, and then be able to answer those during the next data presentation.
Thank you, Bill. I'm just
all right.
going to say out loud if there are questions in the room, or I don't know, Melissa, are you seeing anything else online? No, too. I'm just going to reiterate, I think, the thing that Bill said, like if something occurs to you, let us know. But the comparison work, which is in the future, I think, in working more closely with the Department of Education, I think that's where, particularly with the grants that Bill is talking about, right? These are kind of community investment. They're doing a range of different, just as a reminder too, right? A range of different things. So arts curriculum, affinity groups, after school programs, to Zan's point, like they're doing all kinds of different things. So we're giving you kind of, outputs, numbers of kids, demographics. We're not asking those grantees to then tell us, because the grants aren't necessarily designed to this, what are the reading scores, or what are the math scores, or how many of the kids are promoting from elementary school to middle school, or how many kids are going on to graduate or go on to post-secondary training or a job, right? These community investment grants are pretty general, and we don't necessarily get where we just, unless they tell us anecdotally where outcomes are, these grantees aren't required to tell us that. But as we start that work to compare and partner, we'll compare our data with the Department of Education and its data, we can start to see, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, like what somebody who was in a grant program, where 5 years later, where did they end up? Now, we also want to be careful that it's not like a cause and effect. Because they were in this after school program or boys group as a 5th grader or got this arts curriculum, therefore they graduated. But we can see at least maybe the trajectories that young people are taking, and see that I think a thing that I think probably other bigger national studies have shown, like when you do this kind of prevention and keeping kids with positive youth development activities, their outcomes are stronger, better, and they go on to do the things that we want them to do. So it'll be interesting again, I think, on the piece of like overlaying and bringing in some of our Oregon Department of Education data. And I'll say really quickly that we're asking our grantees to give us individual participant data. You may have heard us say that a lot over the last year or so. Well, that then enables us to say, okay, can we find that young person in the Department of Ed database, and what do we know, a year later, 2 years, 5 years, now the ability to put all that data together and to do all I'm not by any means a technical expert, but there's a lot of work to be done there. But I think credit to the data team to be able now for us to start to see what things are looking at like over maybe a longer span of time. So, Bill, I don't know, did I get it right?
Yes, you covered that really well. I would just say specifically this biennium we are collecting names, and it on the CI side, those names allow us to improve the matching algorithm, which will allow us to then pick up the student identifier, which then ties to official ODE data, and that's where that longitudinal comparison and just some of the specifically being able to identify youth that are being served through our programming and their outcomes specifically tied to some of ODE metrics. Yep, forthcoming. So that's an exciting development for the 25-27 data.
Thank you, Bill.
This is Kimla, Councilwoman for the record. I am just wondering, it sounds like what Brian was talking about is a prospective kind of data, looking down and almost like trying to see how things might look in the future. But I'm wondering for things like gender, race, ethnicity, would it be possible to be able to see that in comparison or next to, I don't know if it's like census data or current data on what those populations look like right now? So in Oregon, you know, what percentage are of a particular race or ethnicity, and then also gender. I think it just might be helpful for me looking at it to say, okay, are we underserving a particular group? And I understand that that's not the whole picture, right? Because maybe there are groups that maybe have, you know, not as high percentage in terms of like census, but need and should receive additional help. But I think at least it helps to give some kind of context for the information that we're looking at. So if that's possible, that would be helpful. And I realize I can also Google it, but it would be nice to be on the same page, like have everybody looking at kind of the same data set.
Yes, that's a great analysis, and we do things like that, particularly around comparisons with the cohort graduation measure to look at specifically, for example, what do the demographics of the youth who aren't completing high school look like, and does our data or say reading, you know, significant metrics that have predictive value like third grade reading level and so forth. And so we can then compare the population of youth that we serve to these other populations. And it does wrap around to Brian's point as well, that what we call kind of proxy measures. And that is if the population of high school non-completers looks this way, do we match that demographic, which leads us to believe we are providing services to a similar population. So that's an important part of our analysis, and often is what we use to really show outside of a specific outcome variable that there's likely a strong effect in the work that we're doing. But I'd love to be able to, I can show student populations and then show the, I briefly alluded to that, but we are overrepresented in the categories we would hope to, or the data would indicate we should be. So that's a strong inclination, and I can certainly look to provide those snapshots next to each other so you can directly compare them.
And just a quick follow-up, Kimla, again, it would be great also to be able to get that data set more specifically to the grants, because, you know, the workforce grant, for example, it would be nice to know, well, how many people are dropping out or joining the workforce. So it's, you know, more, for lack of a better word, tailored comparison data with what we're serving, you know, the results or positives from our grants. I know that's a big ask, but at the same time, that would really help for me to see, oh, yeah, we're doing a great job, or where are places where we can improve.
Great. Thank you.
Are there comments? Brian Dutman for the record. I see some things in the chat. I don't know, Melissa, or I don't know if they're just like general, or are there any questions in the chat? I'm not sure.
Looks like there's just a couple comments from Zan in the chat of things for like presentations in the future to consider and prep. But I'm not seeing any other hands here.
All right. Well, maybe, Bill, it sounds like, yeah, we've got Kim, thanks for those comments or questions. We can do some more
analysis and bring more information. We've got another presentation slated for June. It'll lean more on some of the re-engagement data that Molly teased. But as we do the analysis too, we can even just share via email. We can send information and get on the phone and say, hey, does this answer questions? So more to come. More to come in June specifically. Thank you so much, Bill. Molly, I know you just gave us a little teaser, but I know we'll hear more from you and Cord for kind of leading the overarching charge. This was a kind of a critical piece coming out of our last strategic plan, was like having I think a more data-driven, being more data-driven. So we're trying to bring this to you on a regular basis and also have it happen on a schedule that you can anticipate and not also overwhelm you with too much in any one meeting. So more to come on that. Maybe I'll turn it back. Maybe Melissa, or I think our grantee. Hopefully we're behind schedule, but we're catching up a little bit. So Maria, so happy that you were able to join us. Thank you for your patience. Melissa, should we just turn it over to Maria?
I think Bill has an intro.
Oh, does Bill want to do an intro?
Sure.
Bill, back to you.
Hey, thank you, Brian. Bill Hansel for the record. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce Maria Weer with Building Healthy Families. It is a youth serving program in Enterprise, Oregon, very tip-top northeast corner of the state. And it's been just a real joy of mine to be a grant manager for many years now. And the work that they do and the value to the local community is outstanding. And without further ado, Maria.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I was pretty excited. I do have a presentation, but before I jump into that, I'm going to kind of mix our order up a bit. I thought you've probably been listening to grown-ups talk all day, and so I invited a youth from our program to share for just a few minutes. And I was going to put him at the end, but because we all got stuff going on and we're running a bit behind, I'm going to put him first. His name is Bixber Harvey, and Bixber has been, I don't know, probably going to Building Healthy Families programs since he was very little. But as he became a middle schooler, really became engaged in our bike program, and now has become one of our core mentors in our bike program when we take it to 5th and 6th grade classrooms at the school. And so I just wanted Bixber to share kind of what his experience has been, how it's changed for him. I'll give you guys time to answer any questions, and then we'll work backwards. We'll say goodbye to Bixber, and I will go ahead and give you kind of the oversight and some specific examples of how your funds are being used after that. So I'm going to pass it over to Bixber.
Woo!
Hello.
Hello.
So I've been involved in the Building Healthy Families, like she said, for a while now, and around middle school, I was getting involved, and it's really changed a lot of how I've been in the community, how my involvement in the community. I spend a lot more time thinking about what we could be doing in the biking program, and I really enjoyed helping with these small classes, even small and large classes, getting other kids into the program. It's been, I think, 4 years now that we've been doing it at this pace, and I don't know. So a couple friends and I who have been in the program took the inspiration from being in the Building Healthy Families classes to go forth and start a bike repair business that we've been trying to boost up into the community. We've given away bikes. We really enjoy having other kids come in and be involved in that. It's been a great experience.
So the sweatshirt that Bixber's wearing is actually from their bike business. They created their own flag. And so we've just thought, basically Ron, who we're just going to refer to Ron a lot, he's our youth worker. He's extraordinary. He had a passion for bikes that he brought in and felt like bikes are almost a life skill. And so he started by teaching this group of core boys, there's about 6 of them, how to change a tire, how to change a chain, fix a chain, like how to do basic bike repair. That then kind of launched into our summer bike program, which we started with 1, and now we have 2, one in the outlying community of Wallowa, as well as 1 in Enterprise and Joseph, that teaches kids bike skills. And we have kids that have never ridden bikes all the way up to kind of our advanced bikers like Bixber. We have bought a traveling kind of bike course that we can take and do pop-up bike parks, basically. And I'll talk about it a little more, but this group of youth was essential in building what's called a bicycle playground in the really isolated community of Wallowa, which at our kickoff had about 250 to 300 people, and families from all over the community come to use it because there's not a bicycle playground anywhere else. It's basically like a pump track for kids and families. And so we have just been thrilled to see Bixber grow because you guys are funders and dollar people. We featured Bixber last year in our Where Are They Now, which was probably embarrassing for him because it had like 4-year-old Bixber, because he was also engaged in like our play groups and our early literacy work. And then it had 15-year-old Bixber, but he was talking about bikes and he wishes everybody had a bike. And Bixber brought in about $15,000 to $20,000 of donations of people who wanted Bixber's people to have bikes and wanted to help his business. We even had like a woman who's like, I want to pay for Bixber to go to college. I don't know who this Bixber kid is, but how do I help Bixber go to college? So I don't think he'll need much help because he's also a tech computer kind of genius. So that's going to help him get there. But I just wanted you guys to have a real face and give you a chance to ask him any questions while you had a real live kid. Okay, sorry. You have to raise before our hand.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. Looks like, Bill's clapping. Are there questions here in the room? Any? No, I think we're all, I just wanted to like stand up and give you a big round of applause. So we need a real round of applause. We really appreciate that you took the time to sit and wait for us. Sorry, we're a little bit late. Hopefully we're not keeping you out of school. Nope.
Nope.
How about online? Are there any questions from folks online?
I just wanted to chime in and let him know that I still proudly wear my Wallowa bike park hat that I purchased 4 years ago. So it's actually my car hat. So it travels with me everywhere I go and wear that hat. Proudly represent.
Oh, that's awesome, Bill.
Looks like Jeff has a question. Yeah, Jeff's got a question.
Bixber, I was just wondering, when you go to talk to your peers about this, how do you find that they kind of react to you? And when you talk to somebody new about it, and then get them involved in the program, how do you kind of go about that?
Usually it's someone who's interested, or I find out on the street riding a bike or talking about how they wish they could get out and bike. A lot of the kids have heard about the program at least, and they've heard of it and they want to get involved. But when it's someone who hasn't heard of it already, it's pretty easy to spot someone who would like to be in the program out at the skate park, bike park, out on the street. They're out there and just strike up a conversation, and they're usually pretty excited to try and get involved.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the work.
It's going to go off easy, but now I see a couple more questions. So if you guys just want to popcorn in, if you have questions online.
Yeah, Nate, do you want to go next? Go ahead.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, thank you so much. Nate Latanzia speaking for the record. Bixber, I just curious because I heard that it was mentioned that like you like kind of started in that program like pretty young. Like, what kept you like in it? Like, was it something like, were you just like really appreciating the opportunities? Were you connecting with like peers, making friends? I was just curious, like, what's kept you in it this long? What was helpful about it?
Honestly, it was Ron. He keeps us super involved and has lots of activities and adventures for us to go on. It's been a pretty exciting to go out with him. There's always something new we'll be doing, so I like that sense.
Thank you so much.
Just real quick, Vixber, Parasa here. Thanks again for being here. Really appreciated being able to hear more about your story and your work in the program. I'd be curious, when is the next sort of bike challenge that's going to be happening? Would love to hear more about your work in helping work with the team to get that set up in the community.
It's probably going to be the summer bike program. We might be doing it a little differently this year. Normally we do a longer program throughout the summer. We might be doing a solid week. And the prep for that, it's going to be different this year. So I don't know how that's going to be looking, but we also do an annual bike rodeo, and the prep for that is pretty exciting. We get to fix up bikes to get them ready to be going out to kids, giving them away to kids at the event, planning courses and activities for all these kids and youth to participate in.
I have another question. I guess I'm all about the swag, but can you tell me about your shirt? And did you have any role in the design? Is it a local design in support of the bikes?
I'm not sure where entirely it was got from, but my friend Parker, who is one of the original three in the trio, that got involved originally in the program with Ron, he designed this sweater for our bike shop, and don't tell Ron, but we're planning on making him a special one too.
Did you just get them printed somewhere local, or did you send them away on the internet?
Like I said, I don't know about that. I think our next plan is to make off a bunch of them for uh the bike rodeo, and we do that through a local outfit.
When is the bike rodeo? What's the date? Has it been set?
It'll be in June. I don't think it's been set yet. It's kind of an all hands on deck, youth and building healthy family staff. We're just trying to make it to spring break next week. And we'll sit and talk. Like right now, one of the schools called about a summer program, and I was like, shh. April. Like I got to get through the rest of winter. So yes, I think it's usually always in June. The first 2 years it was at the bike park, the bike playground in Wallowa, and then last year, like I said, we bought a kit so we could kind of take it on the road. We have a trailer, we have ramps, and so we can make these pop up bike parks. And we've talked about there's so many super rural community, like we're all rural. Who am I kidding? But if we could go down to Amnaha, which is 27 miles from Joseph, and go to their park and have a 2 or 3 hour event where we have this pop-up bike park that kids don't have access to. So yeah, we have to kind of figure out what we're going to do. And it also just keeps growing. Last year we had like 4 or 5 food trucks. Like we've really kind of gotten a little out of bounds. But we don't know how to slow down. We're working on that skill. But it'll be in June, and I will make sure that Bill knows and can spread the word. We would love to have anyone who wanted to come to our bike rodeo. They're pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to let Bixber go. And just a big thank you to you for coming and showing up. And then if I could share my PowerPoint, Melissa, that would be amazing. I don't know if you want to give me control or if you just want to hit the link.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bixber.
Thank you.
Let's see if we can.
Looks like it's up.
So I am going to throw myself under the proverbial bus here. So I was like, I'm going to brush up this PowerPoint, and I'm the mom of 2 teenage daughters. And my one daughter was like, PowerPoint 2016, they're not even gonna be able to open that, Mom. So I chose this like Canva template, and I didn't know until I was finished that it like moved things all over, like the video. So if I look a little confused, it's because I'm just learning. But anyways, I don't know. You hit the space bar. Let's do that. Okay, so I was just going to take a few minutes to talk about 3 different things. First, I was going to give you a snapshot of who Building Healthy Families is. Second, I was going to talk more specifically about your YDO funded programs. And then finally, at the end, I was going to bring in Bixber, but because he had to get to work at 1, I wanted Bixber to not be late for work. He's homeschooled. We have a pretty big homeschool community, and one of our goals 2 years ago was to tap into that homeschool community. And so he was kind of our in. I didn't want to throw him under the bus, but he really has helped us increase the number of homeschoolers that we're reaching. Somebody said in the comments, the Alps of Oregon, and that is true. In that first photo, that is our trail running club when they had reached a summit up top. We live in one of the most gorgeous areas ever. If you have not been here, I highly encourage you to make that 6.5-hour drive from Salem. It is worth every second. In the middle, we'll talk a little bit about, that's our Safe Sitter program. And when I was teaching the program, I'm kind of evil. I've been a high school teacher for 28 years, and I secretly kind of like to mess with kids. So 3 of our lucky diaper changers have melted chocolate in the baby diapers, and they don't know, but when they open their diaper, it is fantastic. Like the screaming that happens. I have to convince them that it's like a Hershey bar, not anything real. And then finally, that third photo, that is the pop-up bike park I was talking about. So that's our last year bike rodeo. All of those ramps go on a trailer, and they're able to haul those around and teach kids different skills. We have a bunch of stations at our bike rodeo, and kids get like a passport and go through. The station I failed miserably is they have a newspaper throwing, like you're a paper boy from the old days, and it is very hard in your late 40s to ride a bike and throw a newspaper at the same time. There's a target. I fell off my bike, but we have all kinds of activities. You can go to the next slide. All right, so this is your Building Healthy Families in a nutshell. 25 years we celebrated last year. We were established in Wallowa County in 1999, and our mission is to strengthen families, communities through education, support, and connections. If you are familiar, I think relationships are central anywhere you go, but if you live in a very rural community, if people don't know who you are, you're not going to get very far. It's all about relationships. But we have grown a lot since 1999. We now provide programming in Wallowa, Union, Baker, and Malheur County. So if you look at that map, we literally cover the entire side of Eastern Oregon. So when I say we provide services in Eastern Oregon, we're covering all 4 counties. If you have specific questions, because we do have different capacity in different counties, and so everything I talk about may not be available in all 4 counties. But that doesn't mean it couldn't be. It just means that's where we are. But that's just kind of a good visual of where our programs are. We can go to the next slide. So we are one giant umbrella. I call us a true umbrella organization. And if you've been to rural Oregon or rural anywhere, I lived in North Carolina for a large number of years. Nothing is one place here. Like our car wash is also a video store and also a drive-up coffee shop. Everybody has to wear multiple hats. And so we became almost like a community resource center or family resource center. We have 48 programs, so nearly 50 individual programs, and each fall into one of 4 major buckets. We were founded as a parent education organization. So if you're familiar at all with parent ed work across the state, we are one of the original Oregon parent education hubs. We do a lot of early childhood work, 0 to 5. Since COVID, it used to be 3 major buckets, but since COVID, we added community resources. We did a lot of community need response, and we realized that those needs are just growing. So in all 4 of our communities, we've really become a go-to for resources. Again, that's not why we're here today, but if you need a car seat, the hospital sends you here. If you need food, somebody sends you here. If you need a bike helmet or a life jacket, somebody sends you here. So you name the gamut, we are providing connection to resources. But why we're here today is our fourth bucket is positive youth development. And this is my passion. I love this all, and I see how it builds on each other. But, you know, having been a high school teacher for 28 years in a lot of different settings, positive youth development is it's my jam. So next slide. So we have 10 to 12 programs in any of our communities that work to build what we call positive youth development. So we're really focusing on positive relationships. We're focusing on job and life skills. We love stories like Bixber, where they took the leadership skills, they took the confidence, and they started their own business. Like, that's our dream come true. We're really working on providing safe spaces. You know, third spaces is such a kind of a catchphrase right now, but really providing safe spaces. And then with an emphasis, like in the last 4 or 5 years, just a really big emphasis on social emotional health and wellness. But that also to us includes kind of some physical health and wellness, because we see them as being connected. This picture right here is of the alt ed. You guys do a lot of funding. Bill has been in my alternative ed classroom. And that is a graduation from a couple of years ago. We had it outside. It was 2021, and they still weren't doing big gatherings. And so I said, let's have it in this giant parking lot on top of this hill. And we've had our graduation there every single year since, because why wouldn't you want giant mountains in the back of your graduation photos? The rainbow is like a special, it's not an AI rainbow, I promise. Like, it really just like came out. What you're not seeing is how wet we all were from the downpour about 3 minutes before this photo was taken. But we are really serving a pretty eclectic group of kiddos that just, their needs weren't being met in a traditional high school setting. And so the alt ed is a big program that kind of encompasses all of those skills that are listed on that page. All right, next slide. So you guys are investing money. Part of my job as the director is to make sure that we're good stewards of your money. And while I usually don't talk about money, I want to like throw Bixbers at you all day long. I do want you to feel confident that your funds are being well invested. We have a lot of programs, and listed on the bottom of that slide, I have listed more of the programs, but alt ed I talked about. We run the alt ed high school for all of Wallowa County. That's the only the alt ed high school comes. The executive director, I'm the lead teacher and administrator for alt ed every day, which is why the timing of this was perfect, because I teach from 8 to noon. We run a comprehensive high school for kiddos that were struggling. We have kids coming to us for behavior reasons, kids coming to us because they're behind in credits or they've been truant, but really every kid's coming to us because they need to be loved on. They're not getting it from somewhere else, and they're falling through the cracks, or they're acting in ways that are just expressing the chaos in their life. And so we run the alt ed program. We do one-on-one mentoring, and we do small group mentoring. And so those are 2 boys taking a cooking class at our teen drop-in center. And we do skill building programs. I'm going to move. Sorry, I don't want to make anyone dizzy, but my computer just decided that it was going to be done with its battery life. Fixed. So one-on-one, we do skill building programs. There you see Tesla, one of my favorite students, learning how to put chains on her tires from the good old men at Les Schwab that come to visit us each year. We provide some workshops for kids in skill building, and, you know, we do the traditional resume building, you know, let's make a resume, let's practice interview skills, but we also do a lot of the nitty gritty, like, do you know how to change your windshield wipers? Because this is an adult skill that you are going to have to have. Do you know how to check your oil? Do you know how to sew on a button? I love teaching kids to sew on a button because something most of them have never done. And then we do community-wide prevention. We are also building healthy families, houses prevention. We do a lot of child sexual abuse prevention through other funding streams. We hold a Protect Our Children grant. We see it as all the same work. We see all of this work as prevention and community building and connections. So We talked about the bike playground. This craziness all started 10 years ago with a Community 101 grant. If you're familiar with the Oregon Community Foundation, they have these Community 101 programs where high schoolers get $5,000 to $7,000 a year to grant out into their community, and they collect RFPs and they read and they interview. Well, we had Ron, who was not on staff at that time, who said, I want to build a bike ramp, like one bike ramp. And so a group of the boys said, yeah, we want to fund this bike ramp and we want to help you. And it turned into a $350,000 bike park because we didn't have a skate park. So we built a skate park. It was crazy. It was incredible and so youth-centered. And then Ron said, I want to build a bike playground in Wallowa. Wallowa doesn't have anything. Wallowa is our most impoverished community. And so we're like, yeah, let's build a bike playground in Wallowa. We helped renovate the Joseph Park up in Joseph, Oregon. We did one of those big park builds that you see all the time on social media. And so a lot of your money is going towards community-wide prevention that is just needed it's needed everywhere. Who are we kidding? But I also think in these places where we don't have easy access to lots of things, we don't have bowling alleys, we don't have movie theaters, we don't have malls. We are feeling like building community spaces that promote health and wellness is prevention. Girls on the Run, Safe Sitter, Lego Robotics. We do a GED program for youth between 15 and 20. We have a teen drop-in center. We're partnering in Union County with Katia and her Youth 360 program and helping fund some of their youth programming. We run Girl Circles, Boys Councils. And then again, we couldn't do this. There's 12 of us. So we are partnering with agencies across Wallowa, Union, and Baker County to also invest your dollars in youth programs with those same 4 goals of building relationships, getting job and work skills, working on social and emotional health. And then my next slide was Bixber, but I have to show him off because he's a pretty sweet bike rider. So if you want to go to the next slide. I think that's the next slide. Yeah. So there's Bixber. Ron takes Bixber, he takes him out into the, this is Bixber helping a younger kiddo in the second photo. The first one is our summer bike program takes our more advanced bikers out to Mount Emily Recreation Center in Union County. There's some great dirt bike trails. The kids have also helped build the bike scene here in our community, the mountain bike scene. They've helped create some trails. They've tested trails. We had another program that made the signage, the educational signage for around the trails. We used their art. So Bixber spoke for himself. I'm not going to try to one-up Bixber. And then finally, I wanted to leave some time for questions and just had my contact information. I love people coming to visit us because we have so much to offer, not just program wise, but it's just a unique place in Oregon. And I think between those 4 counties, you're going to feel like you're on 6 different planets. If you haven't been to the Alvor Desert, it's just such the geography and it's amazing, the geology out here. But we also have programs and people and sometimes get tired of driving to the west side. I'm from Portland, so I make this drive all the time, but yeah. Thank you guys, and just let me know any questions you have and I'll stop babbling. Thanks, Melissa.
Well, Maria, I'll say it also here for the record. Sorry I had to step out for another meeting. I am so stoked to see the bike stuff that when Bill and I were out there, I think we figured 4 years ago, and it's a beautiful place. And I'm so stoked to see all of the things that have happened with the biking aspect. I will say my wife finally made me throw away the $20 hat that Bill and I got. Bill, you may have to send me that hat. I don't know how many hats you wear, but just a great presentation. I know I missed part of it, but thank you for jumping on the call and sharing about all the amazing things you're doing out there. I see a bunch of hands raised, so. Zan, I don't know who was first. I cannot see numbers, but I'll just call on Zan.
Oh, thank you. Zan speaking. I wanted to say thank you, Maria, to you and Bixber for the presentation. It's really inspiring to hear how much you've got going on there for all the kiddos. And I hope that we have an equal amount of good things going on everywhere around the state. And I wanted to know how many other funding sources you approximately, just a ballpark, you use to make all this magic happen, and uh, how much of it, what's the challenge there?
So it's so funny. I don't know if anybody else feels this. Like I'm getting older, but I still call this my big girl job because I can't believe that somebody entrusts me with all of this. But anyways, we've switched a lot. So I've been in my director position for 14 years. And we used to be about 70% privately funded, 30% publicly funded. That is totally flip-flopped. And I would say we're pretty close to 70% publicly funded, which makes my heart happy because I think some of the things we're doing are things our state should be investing in. And 30% private foundation funding. I don't even want, like, I'm gonna scare y'all. We probably have between 30 and 45 individual funding sources. So all the major foundations, some smaller foundations. We have some pretty big community partners. Our schools are big funders of our programs. From the state level, YDO and DELC, Oregon Health Authority, and ODHS are probably our 4 big branches. Because we do prevention work, we're getting money from OHA. Because we do parent education and work with child welfare, we're getting ODHS dollars. Because we get early childhood. So, we do a lot of grading and blending and swapping back and forth because, like I said, it's all prevention. It is all community building and prevention. And so really, it's not like, is this a fit for this funding? It's more like, will this funding let me buy food, or will it say you can't buy any food? Or will this funding let me pay admin and this funding won't? I will say the biggest challenge, as we have switched from private funding to public funding, has been the time frame of the state. The biennium starts in July. I'm expected to run programs, and I don't get money until January or February. So for 6 months as a nonprofit, I'm fronting over $100,000. That is very hard to do. And if we didn't have the breadth of programming that we did, I would not be able to do it. We're literally sometimes like robbing Peter to pay Paul until this state funding comes in. So I think if I had a magic wand and could change anything, it would be if our programming started July 1, sometime in the next 6 weeks, we would have some funding. So when I had to pay July payroll, I would have money. Private foundations most often give you the money up front. And so that 30% does not sound like a huge percentage, but if I did not have that to float my other programs, the other thing that's been really helpful is just the different fiscal years. So we run on a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year, but some people are October, some are January. So because different fiscal years fall at different times, we're able to kind of juggle. Does that answer your question? And probably then some.
Yes, I've been an AD also and dependent on, in part on state monies. I understand the situation. But yes, thank you.
Okay.
Do we want to go to this, Brian, for the record? Thanks. Do you want to go to Molly next and then Parsa?
I just want to say hi. I started my career up at Wallowa County, and truly the beautiful part of it, and when Building Healthy Families just started. And so it is really fun to see how it's grown and how it has really moved across. Just where it started with Building Healthy Families, it was very much the younger population. And so my heart is warm that it has moved into positive youth development. So that is very awesome.
Thank you, Molly. No, I was the 4th employee at Building Healthy Families. We were only in Wallowa. We had just started some Healthy Families Oregon in Baker County. I'm going to blame myself. So like I said, I did Teach for America after high school. I was a Girls on the Run coach. You give me like a snarky, disengaged teenager, and that is my jam. And so I was like, can we do this? And then I found the most incredible team that was also passionate, and we found a need. So yes, I am probably most excited. It's all important. But I get most excited with the rewards of the youth, the older youth.
Hi, Maria. This is Parasa here. Thank you again to you and Bixber for your presentation today. Also a fellow TFA alum, so it's great. It's always great to run into a TFA alum in Oregon. My question for you is, you know, is there any particular advice that you have for us grantors as we look to continue to refine and update how we do grant making in the future? It's always helpful to get that feedback from grantees. I know you mentioned a little bit based on considering the timing of funding, and a lot of that is outside of our control, just given how the legislature funds the public grants at the state level. But I wonder if there are any other things we should consider as grant makers on our end to help streamline as much of that as possible for existing grantees and potential grantees.
First of all, I want to give you guys kudos. You've done a really good job. I think the best thing that you've done is to regionalize the awards, because I think this plays two roles. You're comparing apples to oranges. I grew up in the Valley. I worked in the Portland Public School District. You know, the SUN programs are going to be able to say, we serve 600 youth a month. Well, there aren't even 600 youth in a 3-county region here in the age range. And so, if you're going based on like, this program's going to serve this many versus this, it's not equitable. Like, it's just not equitable. So by regionalizing your awards, I think it put like with blank a little bit more, and not saying that we're all streamlined programs here, but the people in LeGrand have the same amount of people as the people here. So that was the first thing that I think you really were spot on with. There was two. That's why I'm holding two fingers. Let's see where the other thing is, I think that my humble little team can put together a darn good grant, but it's the same person that's teaching all day that's writing that. We don't have grant writers. Like, I don't even have a development director, because we have we have a couple of us that love to write, and we've chose to use the money in programming because we've made it work so far. And so, when you're comparing somebody who has a full-time or 2 or 3 full-time development directors, and they're bouncing this back and forth, and like, that's their sole job. Sometimes I'm not spending the time I want, even if I have the skills, because my early Head Start teacher didn't show up, so I'm covering breaks. And we're just doing all the things. So really, those two things have made it a much more equitable process, just acknowledging that. I did worry. The teacher in me was all on board with this youth reviewing applications and going through applications. I love that, but I also don't know if youth can see those things, because when I was 17 or 18, if I looked at an application, and I would give the 25, 100,000, whatever, to the people serving the most, or, I wouldn't have been able to see some of these rural challenges. And I might have thought, well, this bike program's only going to serve 18 kids. And I wouldn't have been able to understand the impact on 18 kids who didn't have access to anything like that. So I think you've done a good job. I think just keeping those things in mind as you continue to grow. Also, this isn't much to do with you guys, but Bend is not in Eastern Oregon. So when you hold in-person things in the Dalles or in Bend and call them Eastern Oregon, know that we all giggle a little bit, because it takes me 7 hours, 6.5 hours to get to Bend, and it takes me 5 to get to Portland. So when we talk about trainings, or we talk about coming to convene, or even coming to advocate, I am paying a staff a full day to travel there, a full day to travel back, and a full day, and I'm paying for mileage and lodging on both sides. So the more that can either be virtual or come to us, nothing replaces in person, but like LeGrand, Pendleton, Baker, John Day. And then I'm throwing the poor people in like Lakeview and Klamath Falls under the bus, because I don't want to go there either, but they're like in the same boat. It takes a super long time to access professional development and technical resources that are centered down the I-5 corridor.
This is Brian Devlin.
I made it even more late. I'm so sorry.
No, Maria, this has been great. This is well worth it. We appreciate the time. We appreciate Bixber. We just you and your energy, your passion for those teens, those surly sometimes and like super creative, wonderful teens. Thank you for your work. We appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, we're gonna continue on. But the credit to our grant managers, Bill, Paul, and others, like, we remain committed as much as we can to like coming to organizations and seeing. And so to Paul's point, maybe it was 4 years ago, but you all should know that we do our best to invest in trying to go to our grantees, and or maybe in this case, like it's a virtual option, like we can do that too, and we will continue to do that. You know, with obviously with resources, and you have to be careful and smart about travel and all this and that, but it's something that I think the relationships that we value and we know are so impactful between caring adults and young people. We also value that our relationships as a grant maker with our grantees matters. So we will show up. We will be. Hopefully, we can make it out to the bike rodeo this summer. It is something we walk our talk around. So thanks for the time.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate just the opportunity.
All right. We're going to wave bye.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed part of it.
All right, so it's a little bit after 1, so we're like 20 minutes behind, but we've caught up some. We're going to turn it over to our Juvenile Justice Committee for an update. Also, just our State Advisory Group, just as a reminder, right? The Youth Development Council also doubles as the State Advisory Group as it relates to our federal juvenile justice and delinquency prevention funding. So I'm going to throw it to Anya, and we'll keep it rolling. If you need to grab coffee, get water, do what you need to do. Thanks, Anya.
Of course, thank you, Brian. For the record, Anya Sakina, Associate Director of Youth Development, Oregon. So today's the Juvenile Justice Committee update will focus mainly on the State Advisory Group responsibilities, not so much on our juvenile crime prevention, detention guidelines, and other work that the Juvenile Justice Committee does. So Tanisha, if you could kindly move the slide to the next one. So I will be doing most of the talking, but I do have 2 colleagues of mine online. So Lindsay Schoonover is online and Lawrence White. So if I misrepresent something, misspeak of something, give false information, they're here to correct me. And of course, everybody else is here too. So just very briefly, and I keep the laptop open so I can see what I put on the slide, because it's kind of like heavy duty information. And I hope the battery won't run out because it's getting there. And I can't really see from the big screen. So anyway, just very briefly, the responsibility of the State Advisory Group comes with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act. The latest variation was passed in 2018, and currently there is a bill in Congress, was introduced in Senate, has not gone through the hearings yet, but it's there to. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Paul just saved my life. He hooked me up to power. So the bill is there, so we don't know exactly what it will look like once passed, whether it will pass in 2026 or it will take another time, but currently we're working as what's written in the act as it passed in 2018. So with that, Youth Development Division, so the council is the State Advisory Group, and the Youth Development Division serves as a state designated agency. And as an agency that's been designated by the governor, because that's in the bill, each governor designates state agency within their state to serve as the designated agency. And with that, it comes with authority and responsibility for administration and implementation of the Title II funding from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and monitoring state compliance with the core protections of the Act. And those protections are, I will never be able to pronounce that word, the institutionalized, DSO, status offenders. A youth shall not be placed in a secure detention facility or a secure correctional facility if the youth is charged with or has committed an offense that would not be criminal if committed by an adult, such as curfew violation or runaway, and other things that kids sometimes do, which are not criminally intended. Separation of juveniles from adults at school sight and sound requires that in custody youth cannot have any face-to-face contact, sight, or sound contact with adult inmates in secure facilities. Next one is jail removal, and it provides that no youth will be detained or confined in any jail or lockup for adults except youth who are accused of non-status offenses and who are detained in such jail or lockup for a period not to exceed 6 hours. So those are the three first core protections. And then there's a fourth one. So the first three are monitored by Lindsay. And racial ethnic disparities core protection requires states to implement data-driven strategies to identify and reduce disproportionate representations of use of color in the juvenile justice system. And that's Lawrence's area of control. Now, Tanisha, if you don't mind sliding, getting to the next slide, please. All right, so with that, we had a federal compliance audit that happened in February, just recently, and they were looking for compliance with the first three protections, the DSO, jail removal, and sight and sound separations. They were not looking at racial and ethnic disparities. That's a separate area of work. Following being a state designated agency, we have the authority and responsibility to include inspecting secure and non-secure facilities around the state, as well as collecting logs and other data in local and regional detention facilities, youth correctional facilities, assessment and drop-in centers, secure and non-secure residential facilities and programs, police department, courts, and city county jails. So we call it compliance monitoring universe. It's huge, and Lindsay is in full control of it. So she decides what to add to the universe based on information she receives from local law enforcement, jails, and so forth, just everything that's listed here. And she identifies whether those facilities are secure or not secure. And now she verifies by visiting facilities to see if the information that's been provided to us is accurate. And then once data are collected annually, and she compiles a report and submits it to the OJDP. The OJDP stands for Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention of the U.S. Department of Justice. Based on the information that Lindsay provides, Brian certifies that everything that we submit to you is true based on the information that we receive. Then the OJDP determines the status of compliance, whether we're in compliance for each of those components or not. And being out of compliance will affect our funding, because if you're out of compliance with each of the core protections, you lose 20% of the funding. And then you have to use remaining funding, at least half of the remaining funding, to fix the problem. So that's how it plays. So, and then the compliance audit aims to assess whether Oregon has an adequate and functioning system of monitoring. Are we able to classify facilities in the correct manner? Are we conducting inspections? Are we verifying the accuracy of the data? and so forth. And then the most important thing, the purpose of the audit was to provide us feedback. And that's what's really happened. So the audit took place in February. It started on February 9th with an entrance interview and concluded on February 13th, which was a Friday, with an exit interview. Brian was able to join us on the entrance interview as well as the exit. Parasa was also able to join during the exit interview, so she heard some of these things that the auditors had to say. And a total of 16 facilities were visited, including co-located facilities, which means that there's an either two-use facilities co-located. In our case, it would have been Oak Creek, which is the youth correctional facility that OYA runs, and Lindenton Detention Center. They kind of share the wall, so, and they have the same address, so they are co-located. Or another example would be a jail will be co-located with a juvenile detention, but it needs to be ensured that there is no sight and sound separation occurring during that. So it was quite, yeah, and we actually visited a prison, which was a story of its own. We don't have time to go into details of that. Overall, the impressions of the auditors were very positive. They were very complimentary of the juvenile facilities, both Oregon Youth Authority facilities, and I know Caitlin is online with us, so they visited. Where did we go, Lindsay? Where did we go? Well, we went to McLaren and we went to Oak Creek. So one is a boy facility and another is a girl facility. They were especially impressed with the work skill building opportunities that kids in custody have there. And it was almost hard to get them out from the mechanical shop. That was like, they acted like kids. They really were impressed with the detention facilities and co-located ones. So they visited in Benton and they were impressed with the gardening opportunities that kids got. And they went to Marion County Detention Facility, and I think that was it for detention. Yeah, and the co-located one was Yamhill County. That's where jail is co-located, was the detention facility. And during the previous audit, which was shockingly in 2010, it's been a while back, they had some issues that were identified in audit letter that have been since resolved, and they're totally fine during this audit. We also visited some adult facilities, and there might be some conversations to be had. Some certain remarks were made during the audit, but we don't have the audit letter yet. We're expecting it to arrive in our mailboxes anywhere between 30 to 90 days since February 13th this year. And once we receive the audit letter, which will list the findings and recommendations, will have 30 to, I believe, 60 days to respond. Basically, the response is, this is how we're going to fix it. So it's not just thank you for your visit, it's this is what we're going to do about what you decided that we need to be looking into improvements. So just to get things started earlier, we are following up with the facilities that might have some notes and some noted challenges, and we'll just see what we can do about it. Oh, I forgot to mention, Chief Copeland, thank you so much for letting us visit your facility.
You're very welcome.
You were an awesome host. And yeah, do you have any Lindsay, did I miss something about the audit?
Not that I can think of. No, I think you covered it all. Thank you for doing the presentation and slideshow. It looks good.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. Brian, do you have anything to add? Because you were with us during most of the audit.
Yeah, Brian Detman, Youth Development Director. Yeah, appreciation to Lindsay for creating this week of visits and travel and We had 2 auditors from the federal government who were really, we had a good time. It wasn't that it was about a good time, but they were just pleasant and wanted to say, hey, we're here to just see, and we'll tell you what we see. They sort of described it as a report card. This isn't you were finger pointing and judgment. They just said, this isn't basic audit. We give you a letter. We tell you, here are the things that the findings are really about things that either need refinement or adjustment. I'll just, point out, for example, one facility we visited, actually the Multnomah County Courthouse. We were there with a sergeant who kind of showed us around, and one of the things he said to us was, "Hey, your forms are kind of complicated. Like it's a log. They have to log anytime a young person comes to court, and you're asking a lot of information, and it's confusing, and I'm not sure. Do you need all of this, and that?" Lindsay, of course, has been thinking for a while that form was complicated, but she had inherited it from the person in the position before her, and she was not sure that she wanted to change it. But that's an example of, we got feedback. Lindsay had already been thinking about this as an issue. We're going to simplify the form, right? We're asking for information that, frankly, we don't even do anything with. So that's one example of a thing that I think, again, Lindsay was already thinking, this feels like an area we can improve. We got confirmation, if you will, or affirmation that a facility found it challenging, and so Lindsay's going to work on that. As Anya said, there are some conversations we will have with a couple of other places where we think there might be a finding, but to be clear, we're not going into the details here because we want to actually see the letter. But we know that, again, fixing the form is something we can do. Starting to at least be in conversation with a couple of places that some questions are probably likely going to come up. Probably some conversation with Multnomah County, conversation in a couple other places. We'll get our letter. We'll keep the work moving. We'll keep our Juvenile Justice Committee up to date, and then bring any other information to have the committee or Anya bring more information to the council. So more to come, but thanks to Lindsay for all the organization, Anya for her leadership. It was informative to say the least, and they definitely provided a lot of really good education. We've got some follow-up, I'll just say quickly, like with the governor's office. Like, I need a formal letter from Governor Kotek that says that the YDC is the state designated agency and YDO is the designated state this, and we have one from Governor Brown, but we don't have one from Governor Kotek. So I'm going to tell the governor's office, hey, here's a letter. Will you get this on letterhead? So more to come, but really important work.
Thank you so much, Brian and Lindsay, of course. Thank you so much for putting it all together and leading this work for us. And I completely concur with you, Brian. It was so educational. I took my little notebook, so as we were going through places, I was taking notes, just trying so I could remember what we've learned. So not necessarily what needs to be fixed, but also what is good. So it was a really important learning opportunity. And that's how I think the audit should be looked at. You learn something, and what you've learned you put into practice following this thing. So lots of work to do, but it's important. Sam, you have a hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Anya. So I guess I missed it. What is the interval of timing? Like, how often do they come to visit? And then is it regular? Is it in statute? And when was the last time they visited?
So it seems to be erratic. So last time they were here, it was in 2010, and we did not get an audit letter until 2012. Then they did not come here for quite some time, and now they're trying to catch up, and that's what the auditor said, that since there have been quite a few years when the OJTP was not doing the compliance audit state, and I don't know what's the reasons for it, probably COVID being one, but all other things that were happening wasn't their agency. So we don't know. They're trying to get on schedule to have them once in 3 years, if I remember it correctly. I don't want to waste of my time to see the notes that I've taken. But I think that's what the expectation, right, Lindsay?
Yeah, they're trying to get back one every 3 years. Yeah.
Right. So, but we don't know if they will be able to keep up with stuff.
Yeah, they're pretty short staffed.
Short staff. They also shared with us, which I don't think it's anything that needs to be kept in secret. They lost half of their staff during the transition that federal government went through over the last few months. Some people just left, some people took the paid early retirement, but so they're really short staffed right now.
Okay, thank you. It's similar to us. Like USDA came to monitor us in 2008 and 2011, and they used to monitor us once every 3 years. But since 2011, they haven't come to monitor us. And then their cycle now is they go to 3 states every year. And it's going to take a long time to hit all 50 states if they go 3 states every year from USDOE. So I guess my experience is similar to your experience. Before it was regular, but now it's not. It's like whenever. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sam. Any questions about the audit or that part of our work? Because we have one more, actually 2 more things to talk about. Tanisha, if you don't mind getting back to our, okay, the funding update. So I mentioned that the funding is also administering Title II funds also comes as a responsibility to Youth Development Division, but as a council, as a state advisory group, you have a role to play in it. Of course, by developing a 3-year plan, by approving the funding, focus areas, and other things. So currently, we're still, as far as funding goes, we're still in our previous 3-year plan because we have not used up all the fiscal year 21, 23, 22, and 23 funding. So when we talk about the sub-grants that were awarded, we're still talking about quote-unquote old money. But this is what's been happening with the funding. Of course, Lawrence is here to correct me if I misrepresent something, because Lawrence has been acting as a grant manager for these funds and has been doing a great job. So for fiscal year 21 and 22, Title II funding, we focused through the state advisory group decision on 3 program areas, and they're community programs and services, alternatives to detention, and delinquency prevention. So we were able to issue 2 awards in each of the categories, with a total of 6. The values were 150 for community programs and services, as well as alternatives to detention, and delinquency prevention was awarded $100,000 because that was the budget that the feds approved when we submitted our application to them. So the grants were for a 1-year period, starting January 1, 2025 and ending December 31, 2025. Now, we used the calendar year not intentionally. It just happened to be this way because of the kind of long process that procurement did in the RFA development and the issuing of the awards. But ideally, with federal funding, we have to go from October 1 through September 30th, because that's the federal fiscal year. And what makes it challenging for us is the reporting, because every year we have to submit a report to the feds on the progress, well, not just financial situation, but also the progress made in each of the program areas. But since we started on January 1, we missed the whole quarter of October through end of December. So our latest report reflected 3 quarters. And now the next year, well, actually at the end of this year, we'll have to submit a report for the last quarter. So at some point, we'll be happy to present some data information to the council to review what was the progress made with federal funds, but currently we're kind of like shifting. I can report the 3 quarters, but I don't know the 4th one. So anyway, but we'll be happy to do something, but those reports will include outputs and outcomes numbers. Recently, the OJDP shifted focus to positive outcomes, like what positive changes happen in the kid's life, much less of whether the kid committed a new crime or not. So it's a wonderful twist, and we have this information. We'll be happy to share. So based on the grantee performance, we were able to issue 3 awards using fiscal year 23 to make it a second year funding for the 3 successful programs. And thought I had them mentioned, but maybe I forgot. Is there a next slide? Tanisha, if you don't mind. Yes, please. So Wasco County MARC program received a 9-month extension to allow them to spend the remaining funds and complete the program as described in the grant proposal. So they didn't get additional funding using 23 funds because they were still like developing the program. It's an excellent program, that is. But the 3 others, Southern Oregon ESD, Lane County Youth Services, and Boys and Girls Club of Corvallis, were offered and received an extension for the 2nd year of the 23 funds based on exceptional performance. So federal funds, we have to issue them for 1 year because that's how we apply each year for the next fiscal year. But they can be extended for up to 3 years based on grantee performance and availability of funds. And good news, as of March 10th, all grant agreements extensions have been sent to the selected recipients for signatures, and once we receive the signed copies back, they will be executed. So which is really important. Lawrence, did I miss something?
Hello everyone, Lawrence White. For the record, no, Anya, you did an excellent job explaining where we are and what we've done. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lawrence, because you provided me with the information that I just shared. And thank you for being an awesome grant manager for that. Now, what I don't have on the slides, but I see it on the agenda, we needed to talk about the Coalition for Juvenile Justice Conference, which will be held at the end of May in Washington, D.C., and the conference will start with a Hill visit just the day before the conference. And usually we offer this opportunity to attend such conferences to all state advisory group members, which are all of you. But unfortunately, during this time, with the director from the governor's office to reduce travel to only essential, we cannot really offer this to everybody. Just so, but one person, Jeff Justison, will agree to go with us, so it will be Brian, Jeff, and I going. So really, sorry for limiting the invitation just to Jeff, but it's important to go to the conference because, and to the Hill Day, although they have all been recess, so there will be probably no members of the congressional delegations there, but we will be able to speak to staff because the bill was introduced. And not to waste any time on that, but we will talk about it at the Juvenile Justice Committee. There are some potential challenges with the new language of the act that we need to make sure our delegation understands. Again, not to waste any time, but we'll have this conversation at the Juvenile Justice Committee next time, and we'll have a response to how to educate our congressional delegations and what to think about it. So anyway, and of course, I would be amiss to not to mention Molly. Thank you so very, very much for your leadership, your determination, your contribution to the Juvenile Justice Committee over the years. And Molly mentioned that it's not just Juvenile Justice Committee. It started long ago with the Commission on Children and Families, and then it went to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Advisory Committee. Now it was carried through the Youth Development Council, Somali. Juvenile justice in Oregon and the advocacy for youth would be nowhere without you, seriously. Not anywhere in the place we are right now. Thank you, Molly. And you may not leave the Juvenile Justice Committee. This is not an option. This is not for discussion even. So yeah, I just
all in favor?
I just would not be able to do this without you, honestly. And Jeff, thank you so much for taking responsibility to lead the committee. We will have a great time, and Molly will be there to support you and me. She's not leaving us, right, Molly?
She'll have to meet here.
It's on the record. Of course. And also, Bobby, I hope you will join the Juvenile Justice Committee as well, because we would absolutely appreciate and love your expertise. I don't know if you want to say, yes, I will do it now, or maybe later, but we will keep inviting you and inviting you and inviting you until you say yes.
I will absolutely take that into consideration and just have to weigh all of the things and all the variables. But thank you so much for the invite.
Of course. Thank you, Bobby.
Awesome. All right. Brian Detman again for the record. Thank you, Anya. Thank you, Juvenile Justice Committee. Thanks to our Prevention and Justice team, led by Anya. Joy, we appreciate your being here today and doing all this work to keep us on track. And Lindsay and Lawrence, fantastic work. We're at 1:35. We're a little behind, so we've got committee updates, public comment, and a wrap up we need to accomplish in about 23 minutes. So I think we'll jump to the committee updates, try to keep that to, well, it says 10 minutes. I bet we can keep it to 10. Do we have any public comment?
This is Melissa Gallardo. I have not heard from anyone from the public who needs to comment. So that gives us about 10 minutes back.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, awesome.
Thank you.
And again, were there any questions though for Anya? Sorry, I didn't mean to jump over that. Nothing in the room, Andy, Kim. Okay, great. So we'll keep nothing online on that update. Okay, great. So committee updates. We'll start with strategy committee, then we'll go to youth committee. Cord, I'll turn it to you, and maybe Zan and Nate also.
Sorry, my mouse was asleep. I couldn't get unmuted fast enough. This is Cord Bucher for the record. I'm happy to speak, but I want to open it to our recently identified committee chairs, Nate and Zan, who are both here. If we met about 3 weeks ago, so if you want to share anything, I'd welcome that.
Zan here. I can give a couple words and Nate can chime in too. I won't go into any great detail, but I will say that we had a productive meeting looking at the way that we are tracking our successes and the way we are communicating what our priorities are. And staff have put together a proposed updated way of looking at what we are doing under our strategic plan efforts that tries to roll up just a little bit some of our initiatives so that like with project is with like, and it's easier for a non council member to understand what we're doing. And my first look at it, which was just this morning, it looked pretty good. We also talked about the elevator pitch. And again, staff have made progress based on our discussions with an approach to describing what we do at the Youth Development Council. And it kind of comes with a framework statement about how we improve the lives of youth through our programs. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't speak to it right at this moment. But I think we're making good progress, and I will leave it to Nate to comment a little bit further on where we got to.
Thank you so much, Zan. Nate Latandios for the record. Yeah, I would say it was a great meeting, and like one of the big pieces that I know that I like took away from that, like I know you already brought it up on the elevator pitches, but like just like overall and like how to like build more fluency and understanding in our communities that we serve and we provide funds to on like really like what the Youth Development Council is, Youth Development Oregon, Youth Development Division, really just kind of breaking it down so folks can understand like really like opportunities to engage, especially looking at just various like populations that might be interested. Like I know that one of the things we were talking about in the elevator pitches is like how can we frame this in a way that's going to be like tailored to the audience. So if we're talking to a group of young people, how might this sound compared to if we're talking to like a group of like educators or administrators or whoever it might be. So I really like just like a lot of like the work that was prepped and that went into that meeting. And I thought I had another thing, but it's not coming to mind now. So I will leave it there and I'll pass it back to you, Cord. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you both. This is Cord Bucher again. Yes, I had shared kind of late, admittedly, with our committee members some of the work we did after the meeting. So on the elevator pitch or just the messaging, we've made some updates to what we've developed based on feedback from the committee, but I think we still want to do more work with the committee before we roll something out. But my hope is that the next committee meeting, which is coming up in May 28th, if folks want to join, ahead of that, we'll be doing some pre-work, and then I think ideally we'll have something we can present to the full council in terms of messaging tools, which we have been developing, trying to make something that's simple and easy, and actually so easy you don't even have to really remember too much. Because as folks may notice, sometimes I put too many words on the slide, and we got to work on that. So that is a work in progress. I do have a slide with a lot of words, though. If we go back to the slideshow, I will show folks what is in development, trying to come up with a way to just capture strategic plan progress in a simpler format. I think that it's there's a lot in the plan, and as we kind of move through the work, how we capture that is hard to fit on a single page. But this is based on something we actually did with our previous strategic plan. It's a different layout, but I just took the 8 strategies from the plan here, and I've just listed some of our accomplishments, but in very simplified language, not necessarily the sometimes wordy project description, but just things that we've gotten done. So even our current committees, that was identified in our plan, we've now got all 3 of our new committees underway, new and old. And then on the right side, you can see that, we've identified some of the projects we have in progress. I actually learned about stuff we've accomplished like literally today. In particular, I wanted to, I think Paul may be back now. He mentioned that he's had a training to be a board member for the National Youth Employment Coalition. So in terms of our work to expand awareness and understanding of our work, particularly on the national level, I didn't know we had an official board member. So that's, on NYEC. So that's really cool. So the work keeps happening. Things are happening that we'll track here. This will be something we'll share this out as a document from this meeting, but we can actually get this set up so that if this format works for folks, we can have this updated more frequently and have this something that goes out ahead of council meetings so folks get a chance to look at it. But this is just sort of my first draft of what could sort of be our quick at a glance progress report for the strategic plan. And we did share with the committee just some of the new projects in progress. Some of that we've talked about today, things like youth-led grant making, the updated Safe Communities for Youth grant, and a lot of the work that we started at the retreat, those are all things that continue rolling. So it's really exciting to see the plan moving forward, and we'll do our best to keep both the committee and the council aware of what's happening.
Thank you, Cord. We have a printout here that we're sharing so that we can see the little type. And next time, as we refine this, we can also print it out so that folks in the room can see it. Thanks, Cord. Thanks, committee. Gonna keep it rolling. First, are there any questions for Cord or Nate or Zan?
Jeff Carter, for the record. Listen, would it be possible to circulate that to council members? Yeah, great.
We'll get this, even as it's kind of in progress form, as a post. I think Melissa said yes, like post meeting, since we shared it here. And it's in the PowerPoint, but it's hard to see on screen. So we'll get that shared. Moving forward to youth committee. I know Sally and Paul, and maybe if there's any, Alex is on the line perhaps, or others, but Paul, jump.
Yeah, like Cord, Paul Sell here, like Cord, want to kind of open it up to anybody that is in that committee. I think we shared some updates around the youth-led grant making piece. I think one of the things that I want to kind of go back to the youth grant making piece is you don't have to be on the youth committee to give thoughts around the youth grant making work. So please do connect with Sally and myself, any of that work, and also just recognizing that one of the strategic plan items that I could read, Cord, on your slide that had too many words, was around the hiring of the position. And so I'm very excited about having the position that's filled by Sally, Dak, to be working with the youth committee and the other youth committees across the state to really dive into that strategic plan item. But with that, I want to open it up to Sally and any of the other committee members that we didn't meet. We met individually. So I guess I should probably say that as well.
I don't know that I have anything substantive to add, especially considering that we are low on time, but I would love the chance to pass the mic to Nate, Alex, others who have thoughts or input.
We have other folks on, Melissa. I know Nate's there. Nate's got his hand up.
Looks like Nate, you have your hand up. So I can see that one.
Sweet. Thank you so much, everyone. Nate Latanzio, for the record. Yeah, real brief. I just wanted to share that, like, doing that, like, one-on-one, like, connection model that we started out doing. I just recently met with Sally, and honestly, I just really like that approach. It was really able to be like more personalized, and really I felt like it was a really comfortable space to be able to explore like a lot of different ideas. Because I know we were talking about the youth-led grant making, and I was like, I'm going to share a couple of different ideas. Some might be like more of what we were thinking about, some just random ones that are coming to mind, and just being able to have that space and time to be able to speak freely and do that, I found to be quite profoundly helpful. So I just wanted to say shout out to the team for taking that approach. I really like it, and yeah, looking forward to see where everything goes into.
Thanks, Nate. This is Melissa Galletta. I'm just going to add that I see that Savannah Relatos has been able to join us. So welcome, Savannah. You don't have to unmute or say anything. We're just giving the youth committee members a chance to chime in if you wanted to about what's going on with the youth committee. And she might not be able to, so yeah, we can carry on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like Nate said, it was wonderful to connect with the folks that I was able to do on that side. That'll really help inform the work side of things that Sally and I get to do, because the RFA stuff is super technical. So having those conversations to me, I think are incredibly valuable to really try to mirror what the committee wants without having you to live the life that Sally and I live with the technical aspect of those documents. So looking forward to what comes next as well. I think with that, I will turn it back to Brian.
Yeah, I'll turn it back. I'll say one thing, in some ways, maybe on behalf of one of our youth committee members, Hannah Schroeder. Hannah is not, she's also on the committee, on the council. Hannah's not here today because the Klamath Tribes is putting on a big event today. It's called their Sticker Shop campaign. And we were fortunate enough, because Paul had connected with Hannah before he was out on leave, And she had said, "Oh, hey, we're doing a sticker shock campaign," and their sticker shock campaign is basically a project where they go around to different like liquor stores and tobacco distribution areas and put stickers on products that say, "Do not, minors, do not serve to minors. Minors, be aware of like substance use." And so it's a substance use disorder prevention effort that the Klamath tribes and perhaps other tribes may have similar projects, but it's happening during this month because Klamath tribes over this previous weekend and I think this coming weekend have 2 big basketball tournaments happening. So there's one that's a national basketball tournament that's happening on the reservation, and then there's a statewide tournament happening this coming weekend. So there's just a ton of people around, and there's a lot of activity that's happening, and there's a real opportunity to also highlight the importance of not having minors, younger people having access to alcohol and drugs. So it's a big deal. We had an idea about, maybe if it's before our council meeting, we can maybe go down and have some staff there, but it just so happened that the best date for the tribe was today. They also do a smudging activity, or at least they have in the past as a part of that. So they've got some other programming happening. They do it again in the summer, if I'm not mistaken, in August. So maybe we'll get a chance to interact, to connect. We'd even had the idea of having them be one of our grantee spotlights, but again, because they're doing so much programming literally on this day, that didn't happen. But Hannah's busy doing that. Made 100% sense for her to do that rather than to be here at today's meeting. But just know it was really great engagement with one of our committee members to hear about that project, and it's just amazing. So we're excited to be able to share more down the line. And Hannah, when she can come to our next meeting, we can learn more from her. So wanted to kind of put that plug in. Any questions, youth committee related or comments? All right. Look at that, it's 1:52. Any public comment?
No, we do not have any public comment. Thank you for checking.
I told you we'd catch up.
We always do.
We always do. So I don't know if there's points in positive. I'll turn it back over to you in just a second. But I just know that appreciate the vote on the now Safe Communities for Youth grant process with some refinements. We'll make sure that happens, but I appreciate the conversation and the kind of extended time we're able to have on that. Certainly a deep appreciation to our to Molly and to Beatty, though he's not here, as council members who are going to be terming off in some respect, although we're going to keep Molly around on the committee, and our newest addition in Bobby, and I think there'll be more new folks to come. Also want to just recognize that Christina's here. Christina's working in a new capacity. I don't know if she wants to say more about her work now with the Salem Kaiser schools, but I know that's some new update there. Great having Paul back. Great for all the work that's happening on the audit. There's certainly follow-up that I know will happen with that, and so we'll bring that information to the Juvenile Justice Committee and to the larger council once we get our letter. Hopefully it's not 2 years down the line. But that was those are just some of the highlights, I think, as I see them from today's meeting. And I think at somewhere on the slideshow, maybe Tanisha can pull it up, maybe as Brasa closes this out, I think there are dates for our next meeting. Maybe Melissa, you can help me here. I think it might be June 12th.
June 11th?
June 11th. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's at the bottom here or in the back or something.
It's on the screen.
It's on the screen. So that meeting, we're gonna, you look out for an update to the calendar invitation, because that will be not here, not here in this building. So Melissa and I are trying to figure out the location. So, but it will be probably at a grantee's office or whatever headquarters. So, and that's kind of our cadence. You'll remember we'll do grantee-based meetings in June and September, and then this more sort of hybrid format in December, and then picking it back up in March. And don't forget the November date on there is our planning and kind of learning retreat. It's earlier in November this year, so we can avoid the whatever the county conference that happens. The Association of Oregon Counties Conference. So those are your dates. Stay tuned for a location on June 11th. That's it from me, unless there are any questions. I'll turn it over to Parasa. Oh, Christina. I did mention your name.
Yeah, Brian, after that, I don't want to leave everybody in suspense. I'm really grateful for my several decade career in juvenile justice, which I retired from in December when I left Clackamas County. And I'm excited to share that, as Brian said, I have gone in a completely different direction. I have joined the senior leadership team in at Salem Kaiser Public Schools, and I am one of a handful of non-licensed. So if you were wondering if I was moonlighting and getting my administrator license in education, no, I am one of a handful of non-licensed administrators, and hold on to it. You're all going to be like, what? What is she doing? I've been working in the position of overseeing the food and nutrition services program for the school district. And I talk about that as I've moved to a different level in the Maslow hierarchy of needs, working on that foundational level involving making sure that the young people that we serve have healthy, safe, and hopefully delicious meals. So I'm working a lot with ODE. My welcome aboard gift, I joined my new position, Brian and Anya know this, was my second week on the job. ODE came to do its triennial audit of the child nutrition program. So I've learned at rapid speed a lot about this field. So anyway, I'm excited because I'm getting to interface with a lot of different parts of what the school district does. I'm going to leave this one and go listen to presentations by principals in the district about how they're doing and what they're focusing on achieving the outcomes in their schools. So I love this stuff. It's really exciting. I'm having, I don't know which incarnation this is, Brian, but it's several. So anyway, I'm really grateful that I get to stay part of this group because I have a deep, I think people know I'm pretty passionate about juvenile justice, and that's never going to go away. And excited to get to work with Jeff Justison as the new chair of the Juvenile Justice Committee, which I am on. And Jeff, I'll try to bend Bobby Devine's arm for you and get him to join. I've talked him into a few things, so I don't know. I'm throwing the gauntlet down. Anyway, okay, enough about me. So look forward to seeing all of you again at the next meeting.
Thanks, Christina. All right.
Excellent. Congrats again, Christina. I just wanted to thank everyone who was able to attend the meeting today, whether it was in person or virtually. Thank you to Brian and team for organizing the meeting. It was jam-packed, and we are going to end on time. Yes, we're going to end on time. Thank you all. Looking forward to seeing you all in June. And once again, take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you all in a couple months. Take good care, and I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 1:59 p.m. on March 12th, 2026.
Wow. Thanks, Larissa. Thanks, everybody.